recovering. He's like, yeah, I'll pop in once in a while.
He's kind of tired.
He's always in the Smudcast, and he doesn't say anything until he needs to say something that he can bring up or
this
address
is true.
to.
That's true. All right, let's get going. Good afternoon, folks. Welcome to Smudcast number 712, Why I Hate Manga versus Comics. Okay. This is from YouTuber TroyoBoyo17. I've never heard of him. He kind of looks like a cross between a rocker and a 1970s porn star. I don't know what's going on, but something's going on here. I suggest a haircut, sir. Everything else is great. You're very clean shaven. Maybe trim the stash a bit. But other than that, you look great. Okay, great. This is a 13-minute video about a topic everyone knows. Why this is brought up all the time, because everyone loves anime and manga, and everyone's kind of bored. Not terribly bored, but just mostly bored with Western comics because they're all superhero comics. They're all one-trick ponies. We've had them for 70, 80 years. And if you don't like superhero comics, you're not going to like them. That's not to say there aren't Western comics that aren't superheroes, but for the most part, when we think of comic books, we think of superhero comic genre.
Mostly for the West, but,
I would say I mostly am kind of bored with Western comics because it's just like wokeism, and it's not all of them, but some of them can get there. Like, I'm like I said previously, I'm reading a comic which is I forgot the name, Turmaline, and it's got
you read that.
Yeah, and it's got like non-binary characters in it, and I'm like, okay, if we can get past that, it's an okay comic.
Yeah, and what else? I mean, I'm still a little bit more on like the superhero craze, mostly because I'm kind of writing this stuff. But I've been recommended one manga I would probably suggest everyone to read, and it's a manga called Shy by Bukumi Mikuri. I might have pronounced that name wrong, but I read one volume of it, and I actually really liked it. Like, is this better than My Hero Academia? Well, yes, it actually is. So it's like, get 2 extra volumes, bought it, and then you would just absolutely enjoy it.
Is My Hero Academia that bad?
Mostly collect more Marvel comics than usual, so I need a little bit of balance from the modern stuff. I don't get the modern stuff. I get the back issues with the essential titles and epic collections.
If I was going to recommend a comic, this may not be for everyone, but this is a comic that I desperately like. If you like styles from like Looney Tune looking style, Sabrina Online is the comic for you. It's an actually good comic. It's like, those like newspaper comics, the way how the panel is?
Like Garfield?
Yeah, it's like that, but you could get the whole book in Amazon. It's Sabrina Online, and it's actually a pretty good read.
Okay, guys. Well, this video, let me see, has about 25,000 views 3 days ago. He's almost 100,000 subscriber YouTuber channel. So people obviously like his content. This kind of topic is kind of boring. We've seen this before. We've talked about this before. And I see nothing wrong with him going on a rant saying, this dumb topic. Let me talk about it. Fine.
I mean,
sure.
We'll go through it all the time. I mean, I'm surprised there hasn't been one for like, a Marvel versus DC debate kind of going around, even though it's like, well, mostly it's just anime and manga, or comics and manga, sorry. But
what's the general audience argument for like manga versus comics? Like, what is their argument usually?
I feel like it's just a basis where it's like one's doing better than the other, or more or less which one does stuff successful while the other one doesn't.
Well,
yeah, that's basically it. The Western comics are kind of failing to sell, and manga is flying off the shelves.
Yeah, I mentioned before that because of the one-trick pony nature of Western comics, that you're going to oversaturate your clientele with the same thing, as well as the level of dedication. Like my brother was a hardcore DC fan until he grew up and had kids, and he's like, okay, I can't afford, let alone have the space to buy comics every month. So he's sort of grown. He hasn't grown out of enjoying them, but he's just grown out of buying them. So there's all kinds of reasons why there are people in the West no longer buying comics, and this is also have to do with the print media. So magazines have dropped in publication; they go to digital print now. These stores themselves don't exist anymore as a result. There's maybe like one comic book store I know of downtown Toronto that's still around. It's like the original comic cornucopia, if you will. So there's all kinds of reasons why these things are not the way they are anymore. And yes, competition with Japan is definitely a factor. And we like comparing them because we would rather read manga in general because there's so much to offer at so little cost.
Like different other genres, but yeah.
I mean, there's so much creativity with manga, which I think Western audience should take a look at what they're doing and be like, they're doing something that, gets a lot of people buying it, and the writing is really good. Like,
sorry for cutting you off, but more or less with the art and the fights.
Yeah, go ahead, Legacy.
It's definitely like, manga definitely has a lot more like dynamic flowing motion with all how they place their panels, and as well as like good character expression.
Yeah, and I guess that's why I kind of took inspiration of that, because every time I draw, people are always like, you do such great expressions, and now that you said this, like, I wonder if it came from that, like, anime.
I mean, like facial type of expressions, like anyone looks shocked, they look shocked. Not only with, like, the face, but the background, too.
Yeah, well, I always like to do character expression because, it says a lot more than words.
I mean, I think one of the main reasons we see manga taking off a lot more than comics is just the investment in comics. There's just a lot more there.
It's definitely harder to get into, yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't know the entry points for it. They don't know when what they've got to read to appreciate one of the storylines.
Or which writer.
Manga, you just pick up a manga from issue 1 and read it till its end, and it's usually only like 300 chapters.
Well, that's an interesting point, because usually when I talk about stories needing an ending, you want a definitive middle as well, a beginning. With Western comics, there's 20 versions of Batman, 17 versions of Superman. There's so many, and you don't know whether you're going to like them, which one's good, how do you start, and it's very daunting to do that. Whereas manga, if you want to get into One Piece, you could pick it up in like an episode or issue like 300 or whatever, and you have it'll be the same story with different characters, obviously, in their journey, but it's going to be the same vibe, the same things are going to be happening, the same goofy stuff is going to be happening, and it's consistent. It's been that way for decades, so it works out.
Now that you said that, they never do like a spin-off of an existing product with manga. They always do their own thing.
It's always like within their own lane, It's within its own like contemporary type of thing. It's not like self-referent, like different reference humor where it's like something like.
The closest I can think of that is like Isekai Quartet.
Oh yeah, Isekai.
I mean, that's just what I find very interesting about manga, is that someone else is doing One Piece, but you don't have another writer doing like his own version of One Piece. He's just like, okay, I'm gonna go do my own thing that might be similar to this. That's what I notice about that. But here in the Western, you got different people writing different versions of Spider-Man, Batman, and it's like what Smudge said. Is it going to be good? Is it going to be bad? We don't know.
I mean, that's kind of the hole that Dragon Ball is starting to fall into.
Oh, God.
Oh, yeah. It more or less got way too popular, and then it's like got into like different spin-off series and all that jazz.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, in the West, it's a business with Marvel and DC hiring and firing writers all the time, whereas with a mangaka, he's writing and drawing. It's his vision, his words, his ideas. Yeah, he might have a co-writer, he might have a co-artist, but he or she is with that idea for decades, and they stick with it until they die. Or in case of Berserk, like I think the latest final, we got an update last week about they're going to be doing the final chapters for next year's or whatever.
Yeah,
so
another guy is doing it.
Yeah, so it's like
Koji Mori, I think his name is. He did Kingdom.
yeah, that was like, all right, this is awesome. So they have a plan. They know what to do, and it's accessible to the general public because it's not just the black swordsman fighting the evil guy in Fantasyland. It's slice of life of this guy in this episode doing this crazy thing in this amazing world, and then we cut to another character and we learn their backstory, and we just keep world building as we go.
Well, usually reincarnated as a vending machine.
Well, usually it can be like, a guy fighting dragons, but they crank it up enough, saying like, would it be cool if he like, I don't know, like it takes place modern time, like they have the technology like we do, but it's like set in like a medieval type thing, but they still use technology.
Oh, so I'm oh, geez, that's on the tip of my tongue. What are you trying to think? I know
You do actually see that quite a bit. I can't think of any examples off the top of my head, though.
I mean, Naruto is one of them. Like, they have no cars, but later on, they do use technology. I just assume they are, like, a time where there's no technology. They just use, like, old, like, inventions. No, they use technology. And I was like, oh, shit, I didn't know they use technology in this universe.
There's a fridge in the first episode.
That is true.
Like a modern-day fridge.
That is true.
Refrigeration. Oh, my God.
But the funny thing is, they just don't use cars. They have walkie-talkies or the hearing piece. But yeah.
Yeah.
Well, why would you use cars when you can easily run faster than it?
That is true.
Anyway, guys, let's get on with the video and see what this guy has to say about his gripes about an argument he doesn't like anymore.
So, if you had kind of sick of the whole manga versus comics debate, despite how similar they are as storytelling mediums, for some reason the two are always pitted against each other, with some fans claiming that American comics are quote-unquote dying and citing Japanese manga as the cause. And usually this leads to people attacking fans and creators on the other side. And
okay,
well,
wait.
They are right about Western comics dying. I don't think manga itself existing is the cause.
Yeah, also,
it's just that it's doing...
Also, it's like, how is it similar, you know? I mean, like, I think we've been through mention. It's like manga goes through like a bunch of other different genres instead of the superhero stuff.
Yeah. And look at things that are popular in the world for manga, like, or just anime, like One Punch Man, which is a joke or a parody on superheroes, whereas the most popular stuff that I can think of in Marvel DC outside of the films that have become their own creation are things like Deadpool or Squirrel Girl, which make fun of itself.
I mean, even something like The Walking Dead still feels kind of like in that way, I'd say. It's hard to explain.
The show, comic, right. Okay.
The comic, yeah.
I've never read the comic. But I would say for me, or reason why Western audience is turning away or saying like anime or comics are dying here in the West, is just the writing. Like, if you read some of the writing, it's not good. Like, some of it is either self-insert, like you got that fucking like Starfire with that
holy menstruation Batman.
Like,
the writing is dying. A lot of the art is getting bad.
It's getting lazy. Like I said,
both in writing, and it's just like they don't know what to do. It's like, how do we do business? Where do we put the writers? Like, will we do this in time? Nah, put it out now.
Like not to put webcomics down, but a lot of modern comic art is webcomic tier.
Yeah,
I've seen some pretty good web comics. You just have to look very hard for them.
I know a friend who's into web comics.
Well, I do like the idea of the Eastern approach to making a manga. It's not just starting off as a manga. It starts off as a either web novel, a light novel, some sort of just basic words on page that gets printed, and people are like, oh, this would be cool if it was drawn. And the guy's like, okay, if I have enough people to do that, I'll do it myself. And then you have guys like One from One Punch Man who just scribbles. and people are like, "This is great. I love this." It's like you went
Yeah,
to.
he really wanted to be a manga artist, so he started drawing. His
Yeah.
drawings were shit, but
And he's still doing it. He's still drawing.
and he's gotten way better.
And it's fascinating to see this, because usually we think of the light novel to the manga. This is like the light novel to the manga to the actual manga, which is professionally done, and then the anime they made, and they might be doing later that another year from now, but it's still going on that track, and people still like it that way. So there's all these steps in the process of either quality control, you want to call it, or all these eyeballs going, yes, this is good, keep doing it. And he's like scribbling on his napkin after lunch.
Another thing about One is he was always actually pretty good at paneling, I think.
Paneling, and I would say also writing too, because it's like, again, how would a story get like popular to get into the hands of a very well-known popular artist that's really good?
The fact that I forgot who brought it up, but he just wanted to draw manga comics. That kind of reminds me of me, because I read like what really inspired me to want to do my own comics, which I'm still working on. Scott Pilgrim versus the World, and there was a hand of mangas that I read, and I was like, you know what, this looks fun. I want to do this. I want to become a comic book artist. And the fact that you said that about the guy that did One Punch Man is like, man, that's kind of cool.
And then I guess to bring this a little bit back into the 80s, I believe the original creators of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles were about like two guys in their attic who were inspired by Daredevil. Yeah,
they just wanted to make a comic. They didn't care about the money. They had to borrow it from their uncle. And you could see the first four, the first one they did was just every panel was like, we gotta do all kinds of action here. And the next one, okay, let's have a joke. And they just kept doing so every page had a lot of stuff going on in the first episode of that story. And they waited for a few months for it to be printed. Oh wow, people like it. And they got their money back and they paid off their uncles. Okay, we're gonna make the second one. And they just kept going. And I don't see that anymore in Western, I don't know, people who want to be artists in comics.
There's no passion behind it, and that's why I'm very disappointed of these artists, because I try very hard to get to where I am. I'm still trying to learn some things, but I still want it to be good. I still want to draw good things, but
I think I could factor this in a little bit of two things, where it's like, one, obviously with what you said, where it's like there isn't any passion, or the people like, even if the people claim to like it, they like it for the wrong reason. Like I believe, was it some DC writer tried to say that all heroes are like closeted or gay or some shit?
Yeah, I hate that.
And then what is like the second reason being like
See, for me, whenever it comes to like drawing, I always think about like, would this character be cool? The sexuality shit comes like second thing, but then my main focus is like, this character would be cool.
It's very primitive, to say the least.
I put some examples from One stuff, from early One to One a lot later, where you can just see how much he's grown as an artist.
Yeah, love it. It's just little scribblies.
Like, I hate those people. Like, they just have zero passion, and I miss people that has passion for what they do. I feel like I'm the only one who has that.
I'm right here in chat.
Yeah, you're yeah. Yeah.
All right, let's continue. Here is a notification from Vladimir. Hey, Vladimir. Completely unrelated, but a sea lion escaped a zoo in New York. In case you guys don't know, New York has been flooding for the past few days, or it was flooded. Big storm. This happens a lot of time. Not necessarily in New York, but it happened in Toronto twice in the past 10 years.
I believe it rained in my area for about a week.
Yeah, pretty much. The sewers are clogged. The water pumps get damaged, and you're just like knee deep in water on the main streets. So the city pretty much stops. All the subway stops. Everything's done for that day. And yeah, I'm not surprised that some animals had to escape just to survive the water.
Oh, Canada can get flooded.
Yeah, it's called the lake effect. It happens a lot. Yeah.
The only flooding I would say we get here in Tennessee is a lake that you would have to go to. There's houses that lives near like the lake area, so of course they're gonna get flooded mostly. But yeah, that's the only time it would happen.
It depends.
I mean,
on...
I've had some pretty bad flooding down here in Florida, of
Oh
course.
yeah, for sure. Giant
Well,
floodplain.
actually, no. We did actually have a flooding here in town. Like the Chinese buffet that I would always go to, it got flooded, and after the draining, it looked like nothing happened. They cleaned it up very fast.
Cool. All right. Well, let's keep going. He's going to use this weird analogy between apples and oranges and say it's all different.
They're both.
As a fan reader of both, I don't think it's all that serious. Trying to compare them can sometimes be like an apples to oranges situation. And I frankly kind of hate the quote-unquote...
Well, wait, doesn't the apples and orange comparison kind of go against the point he just made?
I guess.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with...
He did say that they were both very similar, and
yeah,
then he just said that they're apples and oranges.
There's nothing wrong with comparing, let's say, a trade paperback of Akira to a trade paperback of Sandman. Obviously, very different stories, different demographics are going to be reading them, but that's the beauty of people like Neil Gaiman, like from DC picking up Neil Gaiman and going, wow, this is, I mean, you have some superheroes, but pretty much this is this original concept of these ethereal gods from time immemorial. And Akira is this post-apocalyptic world where one guy has psychic powers amidst a cyberpunk style setting. So immediately these stories are different. And with manga, you get that diversity of genre. And if you don't have that in the West, which is basically superhero genre, you're going to get just the same crap over and over. Mm-hmm. So yes, you can compare them, and you can choose. You can choose what to do with your money and your time for your entertainment. So yes, you should be able to. You should be able to say, "Do I want an apple or an orange?" If you want to go that far, and your taste is up to you.
And also make sure you save up. Don't waste your money.
Yeah,
that might be another thing actually. A lot of Western comics have this obsession with having to be connected to the universe that their like main publisher is.
Yeah.
You don't really see that.
Then, like I'm pretty sure in the around 60s or like 50s, there were a lot of like horror and romance comics back then. Before it just got overswarmed by like the superhero genre, mostly because of stuff with the Comics Code Authority, but for the most part back then it was like a lot of horror, science fiction, and romance comics.
I remember that.
Oh, there's a lot of weird stories. I remember, was it called Mai-chan's Daily Life, which is a manga that came out, I don't know, I can't remember what the date it was. She's basically an immortal. And she's asked to perform sexually for whomever, and usually these are very kinky people who kill you when they perform. So she just keeps coming back. Yeah, it's this really gory, crazy, and it looks like a cutesy little romantic comedy. Nope, this is really hardcore, crazy stuff. So it has the appearance of something, at least I think, of appealing to a certain demographic, and then it gets like, whoa, this is dark. And we've seen that with anime. We've seen that with Trigun, where this is a fun, great Western thing in the future, a post-apocalyptic world. And then it gets really dark and serious halfway through. So manga has this beautiful way of just transforming itself as the story goes, for better or for worse.
I mean, I'm not too fond of the dark elements, but from what I've read with like Shy, it's actually kind of a very charming type of aspiring superhero type of story. And I would say even better than some of the West is doing right now, but we all knew that.
I don't mind dark stuff just as long as it's just good and not like, hey, I want to be edgy for edgy sakes. Like
I don't know if it's
where it's making Hork a horny cannibal.
Well,
I don't know if it actually was, but I've seen people say Trigun is like a deconstruction of Superman, kind of.
Why?
Just not using Superman.
What do you mean?
Well,
that's weird.
Flash has similar ideals to Superman.
Okay.
I haven't seen much of Trigun, so I have no idea what you're talking about.
So a character has some similarities to Superman. I mean, as long as he's doing something different with the character, I don't see a problem with it.
I mean, there's Venture
I'm
Bros.
not saying it's a problem.
Well, yeah, but if you're, well, I wasn't sure if you were saying that these people.
I kind of just find it a bit of a weird comparison, but then again, I haven't seen Trigun.
Well,
Alright.
I've seen.
I think it is kind of fitting because they both got that pacifist thing, and they're both aliens who are way more powerful than everyone else, basically.
Yeah, but yeah.
All right, guys, let's keep going.
Manga in Western comics. I mean, come on. Western comics? Like, Jonah Hex is cool and all, but besides him, there aren't that many comics about cowboys.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
This video is brought to you by Manta
It's just
Sleep.
different
I'm
than-
someone who
What?
sleeps
What?
a lot while the sun...
What? We just jumped into a commercial. Okay, I'm going to skip this if I can.
Wait,
If
that's
you wanna-
commercial?
If you want to sleep,
Oh, I noticed. Wait, hold on. I noticed he has trans rights on in the background.
Oh, that's a big sign.
Oh boy.
Man, I just noticed that.
Why is
You
it?
know what?
I think all of these guys that they got the Hawaiian shirt thing going. They got the 70s porn star look going.
Now wait a minute, Smud. I have a Hawaiian shirt. Don't you dare drag me into this.
Yeah, but they're not. You're not showing yourself online talking about trans rights and other goofy things that are just dumb.
That is true.
This is probably a thing that they've just sort of collectively. I'm going to look like that weirdo online with long hair, and he likes comic books, but he hates them secretly. And it's like, okay,
Basically, just want to boast themselves out. That's it.
You know, I
I think the guy that really started this whole look is like Noah Samson. He's a bread tuber.
okay.
He's also got the mustache with the long hair.
Yeah, no, I was thinking of like Jack Saint. Same idea.
You know, this is probably not a big deal to bring up, but it's like I always try to be respectful to these type of people, but if they're gonna be like oh, you didn't use my pronouns, I'm gonna freak out. It's like, hey, you want me to respect you? Respect my wishes of not using
Get
your
a job.
pronouns.
That's
Yeah,
why
get
I
a
said, get a job.
get a job.
All right. Let's keep going.
I don't really want to spend this whole video talking about business politics and why comics are dying and have that same conversation over and over and over again. I definitely think that there's something to talk about there, and there are definitely things that the comics industry can and should do to help stay afloat. I want it to succeed, I want the creators to be able to be paid well, and I want stories with my favorite characters to continue to be told. There's a whole plethora of things that they could do. I really like how James Gunn is handling everything by using the platform of the movies to push and promote the comics, and that's had a huge benefit on the book sales, but there's also massive cultural differences that play a part. Manga is a huge part of Japan's culture, and so many people want American comics to try and replicate that popularity. Meanwhile, here in America, we have football and The Bachelor. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. Comics are kind of always going to be a niche hobby around here, regardless of how popular the movies might be.
Don't
They-
agree.
You know,
That
despite
is why a lot of the comics Marvel's trying to do right now, it's going under like a brand synergy, you know, ever since the movies got
I
popular.
mean,
But they're
you know,
doing that
despite what Akihabara would have you believe, Japan really isn't that obsessed with manga.
yeah, and plus, I would not say comics is a niche thing. Like, it probably is nowadays because of the writing is sucking. But
The movies.
it's always been like a wide thing that you
I
can
mean,
do.
one of the biggest conventions in America is Comic-Con.
Exactly, and
Yeah, a bunch of nerds come together.
I mean, don't they sell like manga as well there?
For sure.
Oh yeah,
I don't
probably.
know.
Oh yeah,
they
they
don't?
definitely do.
Oh,
Even the ones in Toronto, we have Comic Cons and anime cons, and I think it's called Anime Fest. They do everything because they're selling a product, and in their store they have all kinds of other products from whatever stores they used to have or old stuff. Like they always bring out the stuff from like 30 years ago. They show on display, and then there's the conventions for cosplay and all kinds of other things that go on. There's singing competitions. There's all kinds of festivities and fun things to do. So it's not just for specific fandoms. It's kind of like, are you into tabletop gaming? Are you into old anime watching? Do you like old comic books from France? Like there's something that's going to be appealing. So and they have panels on and artists come in and actors come in.
The funny thing you said that is the furry convention that I go here. How it originally started is a bunch of guys read comics, watch cartoons, and they just hang out with eating pizza, and that's how it started. And I was like, oh, that's kind of cool.
Basically, just a place to just get along, you know.
Yeah, and that's how that convention started, and then I've been going there ever since, and I've met some pretty interesting people.
I'm not exactly. I mean, I am a bit more. I'm not saying I'm a total introvert, but I'm not exactly public.
Well, that's fine. You don't have to interact with people if you don't want to.
That's okay. Whatever you call yourself is fine. But, we have these big places, not of worship, but of congregation. And we come together, we share our fandom, we sing, we dance, we put on costumes if you want. We just had TIFF last month in Toronto, regardless of any writer's strike. So, life goes on. People with their passions and their industry are going to keep going no matter how small or big it gets. And these are all of these things, especially in the East with Japanese gaming and movies and animations, it's all interconnected in entertainment. So the pipeline for that is a lot cleaner and a lot more robust than it is in the West, because we just think too big or not small enough to get the small things going as they used to. Sadly.
I mean, I could argue they're just thinking pretty small, to be honest. And just like I look through all the kinds of obscure stuff and not like the low hanging fruit type of stuff where it's like in the modern stuff. I like say the Max, Gold Digger, Dorugna, what I've read with like Shy I mentioned. Ooh, I'm starting to even get Usagi, which is another big book.
Cool. Yeah. So they always start small. Every manga is like a small thing. They don't know how it's going to go. They test it out for a few months. If it keeps selling, they keep going. And it all comes down to the mangaka. Do they want to keep making it? Do they like it? Are they getting good feedback? Are the publisher enjoying what they're doing? They're making money for them. And they just keep going and going and going.
Isn't that kind of how art is in general? Like you want to draw something and see how it does, and if it gets really big, you just keep doing more of it.
Well, there's a cost-benefit analysis of how much time you put into something and whether people will buy your work just because it's you, like if he's popular or you like the characters, you're going to just keep picking it up. It depends. So
because I just know I went from one thing to another, and a lot of people like it, and I've gotten a lot of commission out of it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, look at anything from Shonen Jump. It's kind of like a mixed magazine thing, and you can pick that up and go, hey, I like 3x3 Eyes when it was coming out. I want more. And they ended up making an anime out of it. So there's things generate a certain snowball effect that get bigger and bigger enough to be published in another avenue that more people will appreciate. And not everything in anime is shonen. That's usually the height of the popularity. So whether it's Dragon Ball, I mean, eventually you grow out of it, watching it, and you got to keep it fresh for the new generation of people to watch. So it's kind of like, okay, how do I keep this story going and why? Because most of these stories, like Dragon Ball for sure, should have ended a decade ago. And they just keep going. So
I just saw in the comments, if you draw, yes, Fox, if you draw smut, people will come.
If I draw? Oh.
No, if I draw.
I'll draw you.
Yes, that is true, but not entirely true. There are some artists that draw smut that doesn't even get clout because either they don't keep it up or they are not good at what they're doing.
And also I think some of them could be kind of assholes. Where it's like, Ken, I believe.
The people that I draw that I've seen that, well, he's gone. The people that I've saw that draws like non-safe for work art, some of them are very tame, some of them are very nice, but you will come across those what's the word, arrogant type people, like, I'm such a big shot type people.
The ego.
Yeah, the ego.
All right, let's keep going. Here's the Copper Owl, sir. How's it going? Thank you, sir. Guys, guess what I did? I pissed off weebs who think it is base to ignore Japan's war crimes. I still got it. Oh, God.
What?
Yeah, there you go, Copper.
there's no need to bring up the past unless you're trying to win an argument. So I mean, do what you can, sir.
Do what
If
you
you
must. I don't
if
know.
you really want to piss up the weebs, just call it Manga's Comics. I've done it before, and people hate it when I do it.
Yeah, I get into argument a lot, but let's just have Mateus make a meme about it.
All right, and we back to this gentleman.
Back.
With me. And I think the idea that the American comic industry is dying because books aren't selling as well as they did in the 90s is very much a doomer mentality, and it's not.
I don't care what the mentality is. The numbers don't lie. This is not a mentality. This is just facts. It's just look at the.
Yeah. It's an objective metric that they're selling well, that they're selling badly. And it's not even that they're not selling as well as they did in the 90s. They're selling tremendously badly.
Like, very bad. Like, look, I'm definitely not a doomer. From, this guy, I'm definitely not a doomer. I am a Marvel fan, and I'll tell you, they're going down, like, very bad. Hell, Kelly Sue DeConnick admitted it. Like, back then, she was like, keep your politics out of the book. It was like, what books are you reading? And then it's just like, the next interview would be like, yeah, they're going down.
If you're going to add politics to your comic,
No, that's going to be irrelevant, but I'm just making fun of, like, Kelly Sue DeConnick going from, like, Captain America was a social justice warrior, and then it's just like, oh, no, they're going down.
Well, yeah, if it's bullshit like that, yeah, just keep it out. But if you actually have something to say and not preaching to the choir, I would say add politics to your comic. You just got to know how to do it. Like, we're not saying to keep it out of comics like 100%. It's just
politics is fine. Propaganda isn't.
Exactly.
Yeah, like, you got to know the difference between, like, a political theme and then one just shoved down your throat.
Like, for example,
like the X-Men versus the X-Men now.
Yeah, exactly. Good one, Nick. Yeah.
I mean, I could make a similar argument about, like, Christianity movies. There are some that are just preaching to you, not telling you anything, rather than tell a good story. Like a good example that just preach to you, like God's Not Dead. It doesn't say anything to you. It just says Christian good, atheist bad. And it's like, okay, that's a blank writing right there.
And then something like Passion of the Christ, which is a really well put together movie.
Yeah.
Something, especially when that conversation seems to always lead to some racist stereotypes or flat out fetishization of Japan, or some grifter comics are bad now because they're...
Okay, let me make down a little bit of a list. I used to like Black Panther before the MCU made him BLM Black Revolutionary crap. Jessica Drew got pregnant and started vomiting acid afterwards. What else? Oh yeah. And then, what are you doing now? They, for some reason, made Beyonder a twink in the recent Moon Girl show.
Also, the racist part he keeps bringing up. Let's talk about Western comics where they literally shit on white people. You want to talk about that? You
gaslit Iceman into being gay.
They violated his mind into being gay.
Yeah,
he wasn't gay.
Jean Grey made him gay, I think, something like that.
Yeah, she screwed with his mind.
Also, like, I hate these people. Oh, there's racism in the Japanese culture. Yeah, well, what about the people who says white people are bad, and if you're straight, you're bad, and if you're a male, you're bad?
And not just for, like, white people, too. Even, like, the ones boasted up on the golden pedestal. Like I mentioned with Black Panther, where it's, like, they just wanted, like, Wakanda to be, like, this isolationist, like, black utopia that treats, like, the savage noble routes.
Well, in his comment regarding the fetishization of Japan, I'm not sure what that means unless he's referring to Japanese women.
He is.
You do see it a lot with some weebs where they're like, Japan is better than America at everything.
Okay.
Yeah, those people could definitely boast up too, but I would definitely agree that
those people are like 15.
Yeah, but I don't think of America and go, oh my God, America. I'm like, yeah, it's America. I don't think it's the most amazing place in the world. Every country has their own issues. So to fetishize a country, I don't think that's a thing. I know my brother, he loves Japan. He goes there every year for vacation. He likes the hot springs. He likes going to all the crazy, there's some sort of booths for everything. Like you go to Japan, any major city, there's like, you want to buy something, there's a booth or a box outside. You just walk past it, pick up.
And the thing,
there are definitely some weebs that are like, Japan is just like anime, and I wish I was born there so I could be an anime character.
oh, that's so
like the
cringe.
anime normies or whatever.
But the fetishing
Like,
part,
yeah, they grow out of it when they get out of anime club.
you
I
want,
get very mad.
but the fact that he brings up the fetishing part, the funny thing is, whenever it comes to Japan doing all fetishy stuff, they do it better than Western, because whenever we see them do a gay character, it's not good. But when Japan does like a, I guess, fetish version of something, they always write the character good. And we know that this is a fetish type character, but it's always surprising to have good character development. I've noticed that about
Also,
anime.
they just mostly don't take this stuff like seriously.
Exactly.
Whereas, like the other side, they just want you to just be like, accept this over and over.
I would
Exactly.
say, due to the sheer number of stories, especially in manga, that you can read, that every artist who draws manga obviously reads manga, they are inspired by so many stories, so that stuff like stereotypes, men and women, boys and girls growing up, it's been done. We've seen it. We know it. We don't need to play around with it. Let them play out in the characters you write. And it's just a natural progression of story. You don't have to like, well, my gay character is going to be like, it's like, no, you just write a character who happens to
Yeah.
be gay. That's just one of his many elements of his character that you can use. So this idea, like even I'm talking to people on Twitter about Castlevania that just came out on Netflix, and they changed some of the background characters. Now, if you don't know Castlevania, there's not much lore to go with on the original games that came out, so there's lots of areas for adaptation to fill in the blanks. The problem is what little there is there, they change. When you should have added to what's already there and fleshed that out, and not to say what they did was not uncreative or bad, you just sort of got rid of the lore to do your own thing, like French colonization, which, yes, that is tangentially related to the theme of rebellion, but even in the story, it's like, hey, look, we brought this character from the French colony, and they're also a rebel. You're like, yay! You're like, what?
I mean,
what does that have to do with anything?
I have a character that I've been drawing, and just a character that was like, oh, this would be a fun character to draw. And the only thing that some person has to say about the comment saying like nice transgender character, and I'm like,
Oh,
okay,
really?
can we just talk about the design? Is the design cool? Does
Yeah.
it look all right? It's like, no, it's a very lovely trans character, and I'm like,
It's just a caricature. It's like, don't worry about it, all right?
and I was, part of me wanted to respond to the guy saying like, first off, she's not trans, she's like
a girl.
Futa.
Just a girl.
A girl, but with a birth defects, let's just say. But can we just talk about the design, her characterness, other than she has a dick, please?
Oh, so it's like Kane and Nier.
A what? It's a what now?
Kane from Nier.
Um,
You haven't played Nier, I guess.
no. What's that?
It's the game that came out before Nier Automata with the robots.
I think the stuff with the robot.
It's the one before that.
Yeah, okay.
It was kind of niche. I understand that you probably didn't play it. It's fine.
Is it like an
I'm not-
anime game?
It was by Yoko Taro.
Okay. Well, there's a lot of games I hadn't played. I'm sorry.
All right, no worries. Let's
More
keep
about that.
going. Here is Captain Kohai. Thank you, sir. How's it going? Hey, no, you silly. White isn't a race. It's okay to discriminate against them because they're white. They have to accept. They have no concept of white on white racism. Cue a Jew in Irishman and any other white discriminated ethnicity looking on in shame.
You know my response to that? Okay, today's Hollywood Western writer. Here's a challenge for you. I want you to make a black character, but don't have their motivations be about racism, oppression, slavery, etc. Go.
Yeah, go. Like if you could do that, I will have full respect for you. But just make sure the character is written very.
That's
good.
why I made Shango. Well, more or less, Wisp gave me like, oh, you heard about African Yoruba, and I'd be like, I actually like Shango. I want to use the character.
You know, when you said Shango, my mind went to Shango Fett, like a fan.
I might have screwed up the name, but just like an African Yoruba god of fire and thunder, essentially.
Fire and thunder.
Yep.
All right, let's keep going.
My completely apolitical pirate book. I'm very smart kinds of takes. Me personally, I'm not really interested.
Piracy is against pretty much any power system, so I don't know if that's a political message outside of.
He's doing the whole. There's politics in the story, therefore you're fine with politics.
Oh, there's politics.
So this isn't propaganda like what you make.
Captain America punched Hitler.
Okay, we're fine with. Well, this is why I said we're fine with politics in movies. It's just we don't want it shoved down our throats. That's
Again,
it's like when
political theme from a forced one.
Right.
It's like during the whole Starfield pronouns thing when they were like, "Oh, but you like Fallout New Vegas." Yeah.
And the
such a dumb argument.
The thing is, I had a similar argument with someone where High School DxD, there's a boy that dresses up like a girl. It's never addressed. It's just like, okay, this boy just likes to wear girls' clothes and it looks like a girl. Okay, moving on. While people, if they wrote that, they would just say, hey, I'm a trans, non-binary, he, she, her, and I'm just like, oh. Like, you know what I mean.
Why should I care?
Exactly.
I just want to enjoy.
Well, we do see them do that with, like, Chihiro or Naoto.
And this is why I can't get into these people's character. It's just bland character that's like, hey, I identify for my sexuality and my pronouns. It's like, okay, but what is your flaws? What is your goals? Other than, hey, I like to take it up the ass.
I could just look at Carol Danvers as Captain Marvel compared to Marvel, the original one. One is pretty much Carol Danvers basically is the very thing Marvel's character arc criticized him of being, a cold warrior.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'll focus on the stories and the creators. I want to talk about the mediums overall.
Media.
And the art that they produce, their strengths, their weaknesses, and what we can learn from the two in order to get a better picture and a better appreciation for both American comics and manga. By the way, I'm mainly going to be talking about the big two comic companies here, Marvel and DC. Independent comics are equally important, and there are tons of amazing books from other publishers, and a lot of people tend to flat out ignore them when it comes to this conversation, but obviously it's a little bit easier to get into something like Radiant Black or Do a Powerbomb or Invincible than it is the X-Men. So when
let me guess, we're gonna ignore. We're gonna very, very specifically ignore comics from like the Rippaverse.
Oh yeah, or like EVS and all that.
Western comics that are actually doing well because they're not propaganda.
Yep. I mean, even for me, even though I don't promote myself as anti-woke, Dick Masterson. Saying I have no plot. Nah. Just kidding. I don't want to get him.
Here is Captain Kohai one more time. He's going through the super chatting method for whatever floats your boat, sir. It's your money. Politics and real robot mecha. War is bad. Enough said. That's putting it very lightly. There's a lot of politics in
war is bad.
Mecha games. Or mini mecha stories, not just games.
There's a lot of war stories in that.
All right.
Listen, I just want to watch my anime girl's titty talk about racism.
Well, that would be fun.
You need to be lectured about how being a man is bad, but also useful in a very minor way.
It's one way to kill a boner. If you're watching your favorite shonen manga, or watching your favorite shonen anime, or reading your favorite shonen manga, and one of the girls start talking about equality in the workforce, you're like, what?
Man, you gotta know your place. I'm gonna set you back straight, and you're gonna sit under my rock. All right.
Okay. All right.
freaking lectures.
I say context, I know that can mean a whole lot of different things, but just to save myself on the sheer word count of this video, I'm going to use that to refer to Marvel and DC books. One of the biggest strengths of manga as a medium is purely how accessible it is. For any manga storyline that you want to read, whatever genre or imprint, and no matter how old it is, you always have a clear and easy to understand place to start. If you want to start reading Chainsaw Man, for example, where do you start? With number 1.
Yeah, but can't you do that the same with any Western comic?
What is that argument?
I think he did say that manga's advantages is accessibility, where it's like...
Yeah, if he said it's cheaper, it's freer, it's easier to find online or on your phone, I'd agree. Yeah, manga's... I've been reading manga for free for decades. So...
I mean, you could say that about any comics. I could read, like, a comic right now on the web for free. I mean, I don't know what he's talking about.
I mean, taking an issue... okay, I get like big old back issue essential titles, which are just a collection of multiple issues instead of just one at a time, where this one is just, one volume with a bunch of other chapters.
Well, this is what we talked about before, where we were talking about how it's a lot easier to just grab a manga and start it than it is to find the first issue of a comic and read that so that you can read the Civil War storyline and understand all the references.
Come on, Nick. You could pick a better comic. The West Coast Avengers.
Okay. But yeah, it's basically what we were talking about before. I understand this.
I mean, the only comic... Well, yeah, go on.
For the majority of manga, even long-running Shonen Jump titles, the books are traditionally written by a single writer, as opposed to multiple writers and creators jumping in and out. This makes character development and story arcs more consistent, and it means that no matter what you read in a series, it'll always be a part of the original creator's vision, and you'll always get a clear through line from beginning to end.
Here's another thing I found about manga. Manga reads really fast.
It does?
Yeah. I agree with that one.
I mean, the mangas that I've read, sometimes it takes your time to kind of get through it. Like, what was the manga? Bleach. I read Bleach, and it took a while for it to kind of get to something interesting, at least for me.
There's a bit of outliers, but manga, for the most part, is a lot more, fast-paced wise, where it's comics. Like, back then, they had, big old narration, and then it's, little dialogue. But today's problems with comics, where it's, they had very little narration, but all the characters talk so long, like a whole essay paragraph work. I mean, look at Mother of Madness.
Yeah, but
he just goes on a whole rant about how she completed Undertale on a pacifist run.
Yeah, but
I mean, there's a lot of manga where you'll go through 3 or 4 pages without a single word bubble popping up.
Yeah, do it again, Tarkovsky route.
Isn't that kind of overstay in its welcome? Just having a bunch of inner thoughts.
It's not inner thoughts. It's
pick up. I mean,
look at Blam or Blame or however the hell you pronounce it. There's a lot of panels in that are just scenery that build atmosphere.
Okay, well, I just know whenever I hear a character going on a monologue, it can overstay its welcome at times.
It puts you into the scene, where it's it gets you into the scenario, and then you get to the whole action setup and the talking. It kind of wants to, hook you into the whole atmosphere and all that. And then you get to the meat and potatoes.
Okay.
In accessibility, the pipeline of adapting manga into anime is another way to get the stories more out there. Of course, some anime will take liberties when it comes to the source material for one reason or another, but for the most part, the adaptations are another way to get the stories to a larger audience and more people reading the books. Most of the time, you can even pick up and start reading where a season of the anime left off. Combine all of that with how you can't go 5 minutes without seeing a manga book on a store shelf of a variety of different genres, from shonen to romance to horror to slice of life, you name it. And manga is literally as easy as humanly possible to get into. And that's made a huge impact on the sales and the number of people who can experience those stories. And that accessibility is often used as a criticism of the comics industry, at least with the big two. We're reading something like Naruto is as easy as starting with number 1, with how much comics like to reboot and rebrand and retcon everything, all the spin-offs and crossovers and crises. It's not as simple trying to start something like Batman, and oftentimes even getting started with reading comics can be one of the biggest hurdles. I very much understand that it can be a little bit tough to get started, especially if you don't know anyone who's willing to help you out. But I honestly think a lot of people tend to overthink comics. Because while getting into something like Batman isn't nearly as simple.
I agree that is kind of what it is. A lot of people just don't like starting from what feels like the middle.
Yeah.
Like even if it's a completely different reinterpretation, people don't like going, well, I'm going to start from, I don't know, Garth Ennis's issue 1.
Yeah, I think there's a method. I think I explained to a few other people if I were to tell people how to get into like Marvel Comics. So you gotta focus on 3 things: the character you like, the writer, or the artist.
Well,
And it has to be somewhere in between like a few time periods as well. So
well, for me, that's hard for me because I know what I like. I love Spider-Man, but it's the writers. I don't know which one is good.
I think I could easily like help this out with what if I mentioned with Hulk before, Peter David's run on like the Incredible Hulk, where it's like I don't know if I would definitely consider that like a starting point. No, but it's not. It's definitely like a recommend for people to get into.
Yeah. What about the X-Men comics?
I've started out with Second Genesis, which is like what is it, 90 like issue 98 to 117 if I remember for the essential title. Yeah.
Because I was kind of interested trying.
Because you got like the original team, which are like Cyclops, Iceman, Beast, Angel, and Jean Grey. But then you get like Second Genesis with Cyclops, Storm, Wolverine, Colossus, Nightcrawler, Thunderbird. Because Sunfire for only one issue, but
Well, ever since I watched the movie Logan, I was like, oh, this is what a superhero movie is supposed to be like? Hot damn, I want to read the comic of this.
A little bit more an anti-hero type move, but yeah, I get the whole deal.
Yeah.
All right, we're 5 minutes in, and so far it's not so bad. He's just listing things that everyone already knows. So
yeah, he's putting this exception now.
Yeah.
Beginning, I think that comic publishers have actually done a lot in attempts to make things simpler and more accessible. Because as much as it might sound insane with surely how many books there are, you can honestly start reading wherever you want. Now, you absolutely could start from the beginning of a character's run and try and read every single issue as far back as the 1930s. Don't do that, that's insane. It can work for some characters like Spider-Man, but still, there are very few people on the planet who have actually read every single issue of a mainline title from beginning to end like that. Me personally, my first comics that I ever bought were the New 52 Aquaman and All-Star Batman and Robin. Let's just say that one of those books is really good, but I really started reading consistently when DC launched their Rebirth line, which was specifically geared to new readers. The rule with getting into comics, either as a new reader or trying to get into new characters, is to try and jump in at either a book label number 1 or where a writer for the book changes. There are a lot of number 1s out there, which is part of the confusion, and that's because of a couple different reasons. Firstly, number 1s just sell more, and so it's a cheap and easy way to get some more sales out of something. But more importantly, when a book gets rebranded to number 1, that's usually the company's way of trying to tell new readers that this is a good place to get started. If you're confused about what happened before and the potential canon and lore, there are a lot of different resources, both official and unofficial, to help catch you up to speed. Some of them might even be built straight into the comics.
Oh God,
and Google is your friend.
Okay,
actually, wait, never mind. What's that other search engine? Ecosia is your friend. They're cool, I think. Basically, it's perfectly okay.
So the big corporations like Google are bad now because why?
I mean, I think I did hear a lot of people at Google are being run by socialists, but I don't.
Yeah,
no, you don't think.
This is like
I'm trying to remember. It's been a while.
Any big corporation is going to have all kinds of people disagreeing with them for one reason or another. It doesn't make them evil. It's
that's well, don't.
I don't know about that. I mean, we look at Disney; they can be pretty evil.
Well, yeah, Disney used to be like good, but then it became evil. It lived long enough to become the villain,
Yeah. You blew it, Disney.
Anyway.
You blew it.
Let's keep going.
To be reading see something or see a character that you don't know and look them up on a Wikipedia page or ask somebody. Nobody has read every single comic ever, especially when it comes to these long form books, and it's okay to admit that you don't know something and to ask for help. If you ask me, and I don't mean any disrespect to anyone by saying this, I actually think that a lot of the comics are too hard to get into discourse is from people who haven't actually taken the chance to actually sit down and try.
Really?
I swear to God, I'm not gatekeeping.
Really?
I'm not doing any of that shit.
All right,
Okay.
but who wants to
that one is
stop? Who wants to stop reading the story that they're reading to look up the Wikipedia of some obscure superhero that they've never heard of, so that they can understand the story they're reading?
I mean, you're kind of describing me a little bit, but I mostly used the wikis if I were to search up like what kind of back issue I want to get. Like apparently Marvel doesn't have an epic collection of some of the Peter David runs in between with like issue 377, my favorite one, which they don't actually have an epic collection for. So I actually have to get it in like the Visionaries, which are a lot more cheaper than just getting an omnibus.
I just don't know why you would need a wiki. Like, shouldn't the comic explain to you what's all in there?
Only with like a plot synopsis, but not like the whole.
It depends on the consistency of the writer, because sometimes I remember in the comics I'd read in the 90s, they would say, well, go back to issue 157 to get understanding why this character is doing what they're doing. So the writer would know that another writer or what he already wrote 10 episodes ago was going on.
Yeah, comics would actually tend to recap themselves within the stories themselves with like little check marks. The check is really like, oh, you don't know why Marvel is doing this mission over like some like century he found? Oh yeah, read this run of Fantastic Four if you want to know, or why is Namor in this issue specifically.
That to me seems lazy to me, because whenever I watch like an anime, I never need to go to the wiki. They just say, okay, this character is doing this for this reason, moving on.
I mean, you said anime, so...
Well, okay, well, I'll also say with the manga as well, because like I said, with Bleach, when I first heard about it, I didn't know what the hell was going on until I read it, and I was like, okay, this is what's going on, this is why he's doing it, so on and so forth.
I mean, yeah, manga can do also like explanations and recaps as well, but they do it like sort of in a way like teaching you stuff about what things are. Or
yeah, I've noticed
like Baki describing how much this punch would actually hurt you, or some martial arts, Chinese martial arts that's 4,000 years old.
I've noticed the translator teams have like asterisks next to some sentences or some paragraphs saying, oh, this happened last episode. Just read it to check out what that means. So there are some, I wouldn't say the actual writers, but the translators go, okay, yeah, if this word is confusing, it was mentioned in episode 4, and that's where that comes from, in case you don't know. So it does happen.
I just recently read through Dungeon Meshi, and that was in there quite a bit.
Oh, yeah.
Where they'll be like, oh, this is a callback to chapter 82 when Senshi did this.
Mm-hmm.
Genuinely, it's a misconception. It might take a little bit of extra research. Maybe you'll have to ask around online or someone at the store, but every hobby is going to have a little bit of a barrier to entry. And once you get over that initial hurdle and actually start reading comics, I promise you it becomes incredibly easy. But if that's still not enough for you, or if you're still really struggling to just get started reading without any baggage or complications, there's always going to be Elseworld stories set outside of or adjacent to the main canon of the universe that anybody can just pick up and read. And those books also tend to get forgotten about in this debate. In all honesty, I found a lot more enjoyment in those kinds of Elseworld stories purely because they're more detached from editorial interference and trying so hard to stick to their own canon, and they end up usually having a clear ending. And the biggest and most popular example is Ultimate Spider-Man. Ultimate Spider-Man is, for all intents and purposes, the manga version of Spider-Man, which is ironic because we already have a couple manga Spider-Man. The book was literally created as a jumping off point for new readers, a reinterpretation of classic stories for a modern audience, all under the direction of one singular writer. It was even a big inspiration for...
So what he's basically saying is manga is better than Western comics, and things with a clear ending are better stories, which Western comics don't really have.
They don't really have, but then he's bringing up with like the Ultimate Spider-Man. That one was actually the better off of the Ultimate Universe, but the Ultimate Universe does have like an inherent flaw, which is just it doesn't know restraint with some of the stuff it does, because Michael Bendis is a bit of a nut. But you know,
the only time I would say
Logan and Spider-Man switching minds, and then Logan flirted with MJ, who's underaged in Peter's body. Okay, it kept that in the cartoon, by the way.
Ugh. That's not creepy at all.
Yeah.
All right. I'll be a bit fair to Logan there. Isn't he like hundreds of years old?
He's 100 years old.
Yeah.
Age means like nothing to him.
He's 100 years old in a teenager's body.
I
Like
don't
Jean Grey
know.
did because I forgot why. Jean Grey was the one who switched our minds in the first place, while in the Ultimate cartoons was some super villain.
I don't know.
I'm just saying, at that point, age probably fucking means
Well, it's kind of
nothing
like
to
the
him.
whole. It's kind of like the whole lolly thing, which I'm not gonna get into that because I've
He's a
gotten
robot.
but I got into people with the whole lolly shit. It's kind of like that. Like, I would not go out with a girl that's a 1,000-year-old vampire and she's like a little girl. I'm just gonna be like, oh, you're a cute thing.
And she does got a fluffy tail.
I'm just trying to throw him a bone here. Like,
Yeah, I know, but
I
he
I'm pretty
can't
sure
understand
Michael
that shit anymore. He's too old.
There's a lot more other things Michael Bendis was like unapologetic with, but that's just one example I've known from the top of my head.
Okay.
But then again, the cartoon is also I don't like the cartoon. It's the reason why I don't like MCU Spider-Man.
All right.
Spider-Man from issue number 1 all the way to 160, and you will get the entire story aside from like a couple crossovers that really don't matter in the end. And Marvel just announced that they're actually going to be bringing back Ultimate Spider-Man, being helmed by two of my favorite creators right now, Jonathan Hickman and Marco Cacchetto. I'm not entirely sure what direction the book is going to take or how long it's going to last or any of the details, but I would love it if that same mindset is applied to this one. A long-form, easily accessible story from one creative team that spans over the course of years. I'd actually like it if they took it a step further, if Ultimate Spider-Man became a title that got refreshed every 5 to 10 years with a new powerhouse team being able to tell their story from beginning to end. I mean, that's basically what the book was back when it started and before it became burdened with the...
Isn't that what you just criticized Western comics for doing?
Yeah, what's the deal? Okay. And then what's another thing he's saying? He's a little sounds excited about what the new stuff with the Ultimate Universe is, even though I'm pretty sure I'm pretty sure Ultimate Spider-Man died and then got replaced with Miles. And then Miles transitioned into the 616 universe.
Peter died
He gave Miles
after like 160 issues. And then after that, Miles took over.
See, I know nothing about Ultimate Spider-Man. I even asked you, Legacy, how the cartoon is, and you're like,
I don't like the cartoon. The cartoon is annoying. Fourfold.
Well, you told me that. Well, everyone pretty much told me to stay away from the cartoon. It's like, okay. The
comics are fine. They're not like the greatest, but it's fine. I don't know. I wouldn't call it the definitive one, no.
Yeah.
Or my definitive, but you know.
All right.
I go on that whole tangent not just to make the video longer or keep the Spider-Man fans interested.
So, back in the day, jingle, jingle, jingle.
But also because while I know that a lot of people see the like how complicated it is to get started and like being able to start from anywhere makes it a little bit difficult as like a problem with the comics industry, I actually see it as one of the biggest strengths. The ability to choose what you want to read, regardless of what came before or what you know about the characters, is one of the best parts about being a comic reader. You don't have to keep up with every little event or crossover or storyline. If you see a book that looks interesting to you or is from a creative team that you know you like, chances are you can just pick it up and read it.
Yeah. I think I had this kind of method with I'm trying to figure out with my own type of stories with like Awesome Origins, where it's just like you want to go through an origin story with a character you like, stick with it. But for the most part, with like Marvel and DC, there's a lot of like title characters. Sometimes back then they used to have like limited issues, like the West Coast Avengers I mentioned. That was like for the most part like a limited 4-issue series. Before it got like rebranded to another one later on into another series. But,
yeah, but you could make this argument for any story you're reading, whether it's Tolkien or even like I get bored with the isekai stories. There's so many of them. I'm just like, oh, they're fighting monsters. Let's just skip this part and get the actual drama where the characters try and not die. Like there's all kinds of scenes that are filler to you or things that just don't matter because you're here for a certain reason. So what he's saying is just anything.
I guess it's kind of like with me with creepypasta. I was so tired of the cliches that they all follow, and then I got introduced to the SCP Foundation, where their writing is a bit different than just your typical, writing. It feels like an article from a scientist that is researching this thing, and that's the story. That to me is interesting because it's like, I don't know, it makes it feel real in a way. I don't know.
You just more or less have a connection to it, not much. So it feels realistic to me. I want my stories to be realistic.
It really does when you read the article. I mean, I remember before my mom passed away, she read some of it and she's like, "Is this real?" And I'm like, "That's what I was thinking."
I know. It's just sometimes people like to add on way too much deeper meaning to a story.
Yeah,
okay, you're stretching it, buddy.
Yeah, it's stupid, but there are stories that I do like. Like, I didn't figure I would like a slice of life anime because I just figured, oh, this is gonna be boring. And then I'm watching Miss Kobayashi, and I'm like, oh, this is actually pretty cool.
Mentality that I think is mostly exclusive to the medium of comic books. And then there's one piece of So I've been getting into One Piece for the first time, and just like any other One Piece fan, I have to tell everyone I know that I'm really into One Piece. And I'm gonna give a crazy hot take here. One Piece is really long. It's a book that's been going on for over 25 years. There are over 1,000 chapters to it, and it's not even finished. It's like comically long. And now that I say that out loud, there's a double meaning there. It's so long that it's funny, but also it's about as long as some Western comics. And while I think the length is part of the experience of One Piece and is part of why the adventure is so special, there's definitely...
Yeah, but One Piece isn't split into like 8 different revivals and reimaginings.
Yeah, it's one artist and one writer, maybe a few sub-writers to help out here and there, but yeah, it's just one guy.
Yeah, it's just more or less just one continuous series compared to like many different writers, sometimes stepping in each other's shoes, and then again, what you mentioned, all these rebirths, iterations, and what have you.
Not to mention, it has been going on for like 25 years, I think, right?
Manga or no, One Piece.
One Piece, yeah.
I mean, hell,
but it's not like consistently releasing for that time. The writer goes on hiatuses, and
well, yeah, because you need to refresh your creativity. Because if you just keep on going, you're gonna burn out. Like
you will burn out.
Like I've learned that the hard way. That you just can't keep on, keep at it. You need a break. You need to take time.
Yeah, which reminds me of one of the major problems of popular anime is they have the filler material between seasons or between the writer wanting to do something else or just not having enough energy, and the production team saying, no, we gotta produce another season of Naruto. We gotta keep it going. Let's make a movie. And I was like, oh, okay. So there's all these other things outside interfering with the production schedule. But for the most part, the writer wants to keep things consistent. So, and those are the filler episodes are the things that people dislike the most, because as good as the stories might be, they have nothing to do with the main drama or the main characters that don't impact them in a permanent way. Because you can't do that. You can't kill off Sasuke or whoever. So it's like, all right, whatever. Just have a little fun adventure, and then get back to the real thing next season. So it's one of those things. It's more of a business thing, which we've noticed the same with Marvel and DC. They're a business. They treat it like a business. They hire and fire writers all the time and artists, and they see, oh, maybe this can sell. Maybe we try a full cover this time. Maybe we'll try a holographic cover. So there's all these business applications as opposed to storytelling, as opposed to making the next episode of the story you're trying to tell for the past year or so, which is selling. So as soon as it becomes a business, it no longer becomes a focus on art, and I think that's kind of obvious.
What about people who are like, I would say, just like sit at home doing commission? Would you say it's the same way for them, or no? They could just take time to.
I mean, I would say with them it'd probably be a bit more focused towards business, because at least with a company like Shonen Jump or whatever, the company people can think business, the artists can think art.
Because I just know for me, I've been taking a hiatus. I need to get to doing commissions, but I just normally take a break so that way the quality of what I'm doing still stay fresh and still stay, I guess consistent.
I'm just busy all the time with college and work.
Well, yeah, but for me, like, I mean, I could just draw whenever, but it's just I need a break. Like, and people may be like, "Why?" And it's like, well, you want this quality to stay good, right? Give me time to refresh my brain, and I can get back to, making quality.
I feel like what you need, Fox, is like, what is it? Note taking. You should like take up like stuff with note taking, or get like documents you could just write up. Got like stuff in your brain, just get it all out, and then sooner or later when you come back to it, you could refresh and clean it up.
You mean like a note to like what are you talking about?
Either like a physical notebook, or heck, you could just use like Microsoft Word or Google Docs or something.
I've noticed a lot of people are really interested in like the doodles, sketching, and all the like in between making of stuff that you do when you write and draw. So why not try and like save that in like an extra little folder, and when you're thinking of doing a break, you could release some of that as kind of like side content. That's kind of what that's what the person who did Dungeon Meshi did. Was every few chapters they'd release a Daydream Happy Hour or something, and it was
funny that you said that. I have a garbage bag filled of art books, doodles from like 2012 to now. So, and I want to get rid of them, but I can't. The artist hoarder wants me to keep them.
Alrighty.
Yeah.
Well, let's keep going.
To entry solely because of how long it is. Sure, you can just start at number 1, but it's so demoralizing to try and get into it right now and see just how much further ahead you have to go before you can really talk to anyone about it. By the way, I just started Arabasta. Luffy is my new favorite character in all of fiction, and if you spoil any of this for me, you will make me cry.
I mean, like you said earlier,
oh no,
does still tend to read pretty fast. Even if you've got to catch up to like 1,000 chapters, that'd probably take you like a month maybe.
Wasn't there a meme going around that was like JoJo has like a higher page count than One Piece?
I couldn't even. If I can't even watch the anime, I don't think I can read the manga.
I'm actually gonna find that.
I know it's older. It's a lot older than One Piece, but it's different every. Well, the adaptation is a different. Okay, the manga is different every season, of course, whenever they publish a new manga. But yeah, different characters. They're just continuing on. The next generation of the Joestars or whatever you want to call it, Giovannos, like they're all different names.
I mean, now they're in an alternate universe with Johnny Joestar, a cripple, and then now with Josuke Higashikata, who's just two different people. And a guy named
what's called the main continuity ends in part
it ends
6,
at 6,
and then starts up again as its own thing in part 6. There is no part 6. Papucci rebooted the universe. No, he lost, and now the main characters live a happy life. The end. Move on to the reboot story.
Really?
That's it.
Yeah, I think that's the best example of a story that just people like it because it's so crazy and different that they don't care about consistency or lore. They're just going to keep going on with, we like stands, we like the 80s look and people with huge muscles beating the shit out of each. Like, that's it. Keep doing that. We don't care how.
I definitely like the idea of stands as a superpower. As like
there's also a very clear separation between the parts as well. Not just like part 1, part 2, but also like parts 1 through 3 is the Dio saga. And then you've got part 4, 5, and 6. And then you've got the new parts, which is alternate the reboot, the alternate universe saga.
Like, Gundam is like the AU. You got the Universal, and then you got the AU.
I guess that's why I watch like Monster Musu. I'm not too into like knowing the lore or where they come from, but I know in the manga they do tell you that well, I guess Mia, the larva, like there's different types of larva. I think it addressed in books. I'm not sure. I've never read the books. I need to read the books.
Gross. Larva. I don't.
What do you mean gross? I love snakes.
Oh wait, you said larva. No, it's
Yeah,
not.
that's what they're called, right? The species?
I thought that was like thing for bugs, not for.
No, that's what they're called, larva. Or there's different ways you call them, but I mean, I don't know what else you would call them. Snake ladies.
Okay,
Fine.
fair enough.
Just play the video.
Here's Captain Kohai one more time. It took me about half a year to get to One Piece's first time skip. Oh. Well,
Time skip.
I'm guessing the anime or manga because
Wait, one of the characters does a time skip?
Yeah,
One Piece
there's,
does a time
like-
skip. Yeah,
It's like 2 or 3 years, I think, right?
about 2 years, I believe.
interesting.
Okay.
It's when Luffy goes from wearing the vest to like
Oh, it's manga. Okay.
a sweater.
Yeah, like sweater as well as like puffing up his arm a little.
All right, let's keep going.
Batman, where you're able to read just whatever you want, whenever you want. With One Piece, you don't really have a choice but to put in that time and that effort, and that's something that not everybody might have.
Why can't you skip the entire arc and do the next one? What's stopping you? This is silly.
I mean, I think there are definitely some people who put up like list of arcs you can just skip over
Yeah.
if you don't want to read them because they're filler arcs.
Yeah, I remember
more
was it the Naruverse or whatever? Like, what's the proper order to watch JoJo or to watch Fate? It's like, okay.
The part order for JoJo is you start at part 1, silly.
Silly.
I get the whole, it's slightly disconnected, but no, there's still some connections here and there.
Yeah,
Now there is the Monogatari series, which does have that thing.
yeah.
I mean, Dragon Ball is still connected to the universe. Like, even if you read, like, the first Dragon Ball comic, it's still canon to...
I mean, that's just the past, man.
Yeah, that's the past. Then Z is the
Present.
present, and then Super is the future.
Definitely
or-
not people that are like super, but
Although
there's
GT...
but
Yeah, but people, for some reason, hates GT, saying it's the worst version of Dragon Ball.
you'll get. I don't know. You get a lot of people like GT. I mean, let's be honest. Super Saiyan 4 better than Blue Hair. All right.
Yeah. Like,
not. This is no debate.
yeah, I totally agree.
Have your super forms be assholes a little bit.
All right.
Which against the idea that manga is more accessible. And when it comes to multiple writers on a comic over the years, as opposed to manga's singular writer, I actually think that multiple writers is another strength for comics. Yes, it can definitely lead to some inconsistencies and issues concerning character arcs and retcons, but the flip side of it is that it allows for so many unique and individual voices to be able to try their hand at a character for a while, before passing that off to a new perspective. My go-to example is always Green Arrow, because look at me, When he was first introduced, he was literally a carbon copy of Batman. He had a teenage sidekick, an Arrow Cave, an Arrow Car, an Arrow Plane, beat for beat, just Batman with a bow. Which I guess this...
I'm pretty sure Marvel had some like sidekick equivalents too with Captain America and then the original Human Torch, not Johnny Storm, with Toro. First there's Bucky and Toro. Those are two I remember.
What's the deal with Bucky? Because I know in the MC universe, they always talk about...
He used to be Cap's sidekick back in like World War II, until stuff with Hydra happened, and then Cap got frozen for 70 years, and then Bucky got experimented for another several years.
Okay, because I just know in the movie they always make a big deal about Bucky, and I'm like, who the hell is Bucky? Why should I care about this guy?
Because Cap believed he was dead.
Okay.
CW decided to take and just run with. And it wasn't until Denny O'Neil's time on the character, along with Neil Adams, did Green Arrow change and develop into his own unique hero, and is the reason why so many people like me love him so much. Those classic books are a lot of...
Okay, so all
Did
he's
Green
really
Arrow change and develop into his own
all he's really saying here is that the original Green Arrow or whatever was just a rip-off of Batman. It's like, yeah, it sucked. It was a business decision to make another story that could sell.
Wait, it was a ripoff to Batman? How?
That's what he's saying. It doesn't really matter whether that's true or not, but this is the idea is that, well, it's just a clone, until a new writer came in and fixed it. It's like, okay, that means.
You mean like with Young Justice, where it's like Speedy was a clone the whole time until they actually got the clone back for a few years and he became Arsenal.
Well, that's
and then
I like how JoJo didn't really find its identity for a while and was basically a Fist of the North Star.
It was like writing off the popular thing with a Fist of the North Star before it more or less found
it happens. Sometimes like the first iteration of something doesn't really hold its own and doesn't really have its own identity, but it finds it after some time.
Yeah. I was about to say, like, is that even wrong if something's similar to something else? Because, you know, I've read some stuff that is similar to another artist. It's just, it depends of the execution. Can you bring something to the table that the other artist could not?
There's also the matter of like hooking in the audience.
Exactly.
More or less welcoming them a little bit.
This
you want to like.
I was going to say this is the inherent issue with genre, that if someone does a romantic comedy that has this sort of relationship, it's like, I want to do that. I'm going to make a twist on it and use these tropes instead, because everything we've already seen it before. So for someone to say, well, let's make another Batman character, but instead of a Batman, he's a guy with a bow and arrow, and he's got different kinds of arrows and all these other goofy things, which you think of the rogues gallery being strange, weird-looking fellows, and that attracts the audience because, oh my God, they're supervillains. So this idea of hiring a new writer and changing things is like, well, the existing writer can change things. You have to ask him, is this what you want to do? Because we own the IP. You're just here to fill in the role of writer, as opposed to in the Japanese world, I am the creator, writer, artist. If I leave, the whole thing collapses. No one else is doing it. So ownership is on the individual creator, not the company or the publisher.
I know from like back in like the DCAU with Justice League in like the early 2000s, there was like one of the Flash villains, the prankster or whatever, that was basically just the Joker, but leaned more towards him being
like a
mentally unwell guy who's not really that dangerous.
He's very obscure.
And besides the, inspirement of doing something similar that someone else did, I talked to Whisp about this. Like, my huge inspiration was Scott Pilgrim, and it's the use of the video game mechanics. I thought that was very interesting and cool, and it's like, I want to do that, but do it my own way. And I like to think, I like to think I adapted it into my own style. At least I hope, because I want to see where I can go with that. So, but yeah, people do tell me that you're just copying. It's like, not really, because I hadn't seen Scott Pilgrim do this or this or this.
I mean, okay, here's the thing with like writing stories. I believe I've told multiple people, you have to be consistent first before you can become original, because it's like you can't absolutely have like different inspiration and stuff. Me, definitely like stuff with like Marvel and manga and all that jazz, with a lot of this stuff taking more elements from like both of which. But then I had to make a whole consistent world with it, and then let it see how it goes.
Yeah, like for me, it's Scott Pilgrim, the Animaniacs, or just any cartoons that Warner Bros. Have. So like Looney Tunes, Animaniacs, so on.
You know the rules before you break them. That's right, Neil.
Mm-hmm.
Unique hero. Reason why so many people like me love him so much. Those classic books are a lot of fun, don't get me wrong, but if there was just one person running for Green Arrow the entire time, then the character would have likely just faded into obscurity. Because the way I see it, and this always sounds like such an annoying take, and I'm sorry, but these characters in these stories are very much modern mythology. And I don't just mean that in the sense that in 5 to 10 years after civilization collapses, aliens will probably find our artifacts and our fossils and think we worshipped Chris Evans' abs. But nobody reads Hercules or Zeus or any Greek mythology stories from A to B. There's no real beginning or end to those, just important moments in their histories that have value and meaning as stories. The same applies.
Here's a big problem with that comparison. The Greek mythology was an oral history, so there's not really an issue one anyway.
I mean, there's also what else? They're like got characters in Marvel, literal myths, with 4 being from Norse mythology, and they also got Hercules, which, okay, they have Hercules, but then you also have Namor, whose name spelled backwards is literally Roman.
Yeah, but there's so many different interpretation of like Greek mythology. It's kind of hard to pick like.
Pick
I
which
don't.
one.
Well, let's
Yeah,
put this simple. A lot of people read the Odyssey.
A lot
Not
of
as
people
many
read the
people read the Iliad, despite the fact that the Iliad is technically the first part of the Odyssey.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't understand that comparison. I mean,
Well, we're talking about an ancient tradition where festivals and songs and all kinds of stories were told around campfires or in plazas or as children's stories to inspire children to be healthy and well and be heroic and good to your neighbor and all these other things that Hercules did. So yeah, it's part of culture. It's part of how we told stories back then, and we don't need it written down specifically on clay tablets or on any other papyruses that they had at the time, but it was shared somehow and stored and remembered till today. And yes, that becomes part of mythos, the same way we have our modern mythos. That's not
Even though I think I take issue with like him saying like modern mythos, because modern is a very broad term, because it could just mean many different things with each passing decade, That's kind of why we say current day instead of modern for some of us.
Yeah, I can see what you mean, because who knows? Maybe the people in the past said
it's not like our kind of interpretation of what modern would mean. It's kind of like their interpretation. Like everything's got to be like progressive, or anything along those lines.
Because who knows? Sooner or later, someone in the next century will say, "Well, that was their interpretation, not their modern interpretation." So yeah.
Well, also, generally, when you are like studying the mythologies, you usually do kind of start at the creation story and work your way from there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but with Greeks, there's so many, like I said, so many interpretation. But if you read, like, I don't know, like the Bible, there's only like one well, actually, no, there's different interpretation with, I would say, Christianity books.
Well, there's the translations being different and all that other stuff, and interpretations of the verses and.
Yeah, but the story is always the same with Christianity. But when you read something like Greek, I would say it changes.
It depends on I don't know if I would say it depends on the translation, but it's like, there's also like the interpretation of how you read it. Depends. Like, so sometimes like few words can mean different things. Like
there's a lot of things that obfuscate the Greek mythology stories, because one, you have that they were all orally told first, so they weren't really written down for a long time. So you have different versions that were orally told, and then you also have those versions that were eventually written down being translated differently. So there's a lot of.
I think the Bible would probably be a better type of comparison. That goes for like a bunch of different rewrites and translations, if I remember.
Well, I'm not an expert into all this. I just know for what I've seen.
It depends on the reading, but
All right, here's Neil. Hey, Neil, how's it going? This argument doesn't work if a character isn't who they are. Carol Danvers under Deacon Nick versus Brian Reed or Busiek, and that is bad writing. Yeah, I mean, you can. This is the problem with consistency and saying, well, we're going to get a different author and they're going to be on drugs and they're going to write whatever version of Superman that is kind of weird and silly. But that's the kind of thing that we do with Elseworlds. The whole point is to say, okay, we're not going to hire this guy to be a mainstream guy. We're just going to see what he can do because he wanted to, and we liked his work, and he's a cool guy, and we'll see what that takes us. And we get really awesome stories, as you mentioned, like I like Red Sun, I think, for Superman.
Did I mention Red Sun? No, I did not mention it.
He didn't, but I'm just saying, like yeah, you get different takes, but it still comes down to one writer who's good, who has one idea, and how long he could stretch that out. Like same with Sandman. That story ended. It was huge. It took like a decade to write all those comics. And then Neil went, I'm done. I can't do anymore, or I'm going to do something else.
I believe I have a better interpretation of what you're say with Smud. There's like core elements to these things with writers, how they written about the characters. Like, I could use the comparison with comic writers back then at Marvel, compare to like the writers now at Marvel, where it's like they actually cared about the characters and want to go for their mythos and see what they could do with this. Because, in the very first runs with Stan Lee with, like, say, the Hulk, they were very rather experimental from, like, the very first issue, which is the introduction. Then other writers took that idea and see what they could do more with it.
Yeah,
like, eventually got, like, Roy Thomas coming up with the idea of Bruce's father, like, the story of Bruce's father killing his mother. Then you got Peter David expanding upon that with actually forming the Professor Hulk storyline.
Right.
And then, soon vice versa.
Yeah, and if you look at the business model, or rather the Marvel method that was used, it was pretty much just one guy, Kirby, just drawing, allowing him to tell a story visually and having a writer fill in the blanks, and Stan Lee sort of moonlighting as producer or whatever his other job titles were, and being letter of the editor, like he was doing all these other things. So it was mainly just these 2 or 3 dudes doing the creative element and the business, making all these rewards, as opposed to them just being a producer of the comic, providing all the distribution channels and letting the 2 creatives own everything. So it was a different relationship that way. So it's really in the contract of the business model between creative and publisher, whereas in Japan, it's, oh, you want to make a comic, you want to draw, okay, here you go, it's yours. We'll just give you the ink and we'll pump it out there and see if it sells. If it sells, great, we'll keep making more. It's very simple.
Like guys with tables, like go for a guy in a group table and be like, oh yeah, how you think of this, and then you like judge it, and it's like, okay, you could go with it.
Yeah, and it's usually ex-writers who became producers or publishers, and they, oh, wow, you've done this, you could draw. I think people are going to like that. I think you're really good if you keep doing that. And
you also have that. You also have that where they go through the apprenticeship, where they're just drawing some extra panels for someone who's already working on their manga, and then they get put up to have their own manga because they've been doing well.
Yeah.
I'm still learning the rules of how to do like comics properly.
I think I did mention to get like Scott McCloud, like his 2 books on understanding and making comics.
Well,
which are in 2 different books. But,
Well, I'm mostly just going through like artists that does comic as an inspiration to see like, okay, let's see how they do it and see, how they do their like text, speech bubble, so on.
Usually that's done with another program nowadays with I guess like stuff with Inkscape or Illustrator, but we could get back to video.
Yeah.
All right, here's the Gingaman. Hey guys, how's it going? Comics and manga are both equally valid, as both shonen and superheroes respectively tend to strive towards similar goals in the writing. I would argue the demographics are very overlapping.
I think they do overlap, but I think one thing I could be fair with Ginga with is they're both action genres.
Yeah, the same age group, pretty much.
Wouldn't you even consider like Dragon Ball kind of a superhero thing? Because you have
they are technically saving the world, but it's still kind of within the realms of an action genre. It's a little tricky.
Because you still have the superhero beating the villain, which is Goku going up against the evildoer Frieza.
It's always some weird, we got to have a showdown between 2 very powerful fellows and the struggles of tactics of how they get around that. And then there's the whole supernatural sci-fi elements to what that means. So it's not earth-shattering stories, although there are very large scenes and scenarios that occur in certain settings, like planets blowing up. But it's pretty focused on just a bunch of people and their daily lives of training and fighting and becoming stronger. So Dragon Ball is very simple in that regards, which is probably, I would argue, easy to get into, especially considering the wide range of other shonen stories or even isekai manga, which is, I mean, you read one, you've read like 30. They're so similar, and there's tweaks of like how big is the harem, how many characters there are, what do they do, where do they come from,
Naruto?
how many plots, like just how many side stories, how many side plots can you pump out a year, and are people going to like
Naruto?
that?
Would you say that's easy to get into?
I would say yes, the original one. I don't know about the next generation of Naruto.
Well, yeah, obviously the original.
It's I don't know. It's sometimes a little weird to get into
because
the newer generation stuff.
For me, it was easy. I would say, well, since I only watched the anime, it was more easy for me to kind of get into it just a little bit. I dropped out of it, but the original was like, oh, this is kind of interesting. I'll give this a watch.
Yeah, I think the ones that do well have a lot of focus on the backstory of characters. I've noticed in was it Jujutsu Kaisen? I think that's the most popular one these days for shonen anime. Every episode is like a flashback. It's like, oh, we got to tell the backstory of this character, and it's like, okay, why is he doing what he's doing? It's like, oh, now I know. And then they go into the fight scene, and the fight scene could last another episode, and the story continues until we get another character, and they get a little flashback, and it just keeps doing that technique of filling us in at the right time why we should care about this person. So it's a slow process, and then I think they did I don't know how they marketed this, but I think it was like Jujutsu Kaisen 0, where they tell the previous class, which are now the teachers of the school, and how they came to be, and then it just all of a sudden we just jumped back to the current time of the characters we originally knew. So I thought that was like, whoa, they're really going backward for some reason, and I don't know if that was how it was showcased on TV or whether that's just how we got it in the West. Because when I was looking through all the Jujutsu Kaisen episodes or seasons, I saw 0, and I was like, oh, are they doing a second season, but they're starting from the beginning or going to a precursor? It's like, no, they just called it 0, just episode 25 or whatever it was, and they just went on for about 5 or 6 episodes and then back to the original. So lots of ways to tell a story. Anyway, and they're all viable.
applies to Batman, Superman, and Spider-Man. Basically, what I'm saying is, for everything that people think is wrong with the comics industry compared to manga and the way that the stories are told, I think they're all part of the experience and are actually a strength of the medium.
Well, okay, but the comics aren't selling for an obvious reason. And you may still like the stories or how they're told, but not as many people do nowadays.
There's obviously like a clear-cut difference with like, I believe what I mentioned, where it's like writers back then and then the writers now. With I think even Neil mentioned where it's like Kelly Sue DeConnick writing Carol Danvers and then like Brian Reed.
Well, what is the real reason why it's not selling? Because I know I could just drop it down to saying like it's woke now, but
they're not like it's woke now. It's just like the business, like the stories are bad. They're not respectable for the customers. There's a clear animosity. The business practices are very whack. They're pandering to the lowest demographic with ESG and all that nonsense. And then as long as like other types of other kind of business decisions I might have missed, like I'm pretty sure like some Marvel co-host wanted to just waste some stuff on like a cookbook or something. I don't know.
Because I just don't want to be that guy saying like, "Oh, this is not doing well because it's woke." Because there's got to be more than just saying it's woke. Because
you could, you could look at I believe LD did like a good video back then, like, is Comicsgate wrong? Where he covers like Marvel back then and compares it to another Marvel comic. Where it's like
I'd also say I think there's a lack of marketing. There's a lack of putting these characters out there so that people will be interested in them.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's also a lack of quality control, and there's a lack of ideas of what to even do with these characters.
That is actually a really good assumption, yeah.
Yeah, because whenever people try to come up with ideas nowadays, it feels like it's like on a dog leash. It's like you can't go this far. You can't just let your imagination run wild. It's like
I mean,
Was
that's not going to stop me from naming a character
Like,
Captain Awesome.
you also have these narcissistic writers who want to write their story, so they don't want to be beholden to what's come before, and they're putting out their shit story tied to a character that it doesn't really belong with.
Well,
Yeah,
think of the Batman movies when they came out, the '89 Tim Burton, and the later ones in the '90s, like the Schumacher films. And for whatever reason, yeah, I think they both sold well, but a lot of people liked the Tim Burton Batman 1 and 2 a lot more, at least the fans did, than the Batman Forever and Batman and Robin, for obvious reasons. They're better films. They're more consistent. Yeah. They're more stylized. They're less stupid. They're less gimmicky and goofy, because Schumacher thought, oh, Batman and Robin, that's like the original 60s or 70s TV show. So there, once you have different producer writers, you're like, oh, this doesn't work. Let's not do that anymore. Let's get the real dark story, adult story, what Batman should be, as opposed to goofy dude in a cape with all these gadgets that are stupid.
Yeah, I want to like add on to Nick's point a little bit about like the narcissist writers. There's a thing that they also don't do, which is they don't learn from failure. Where it's like, why are they still using America Chavez even though she really shouldn't like be around? Like, she's unsalvageable compared to like all the other all different characters.
Yeah,
especially with the fact that she's from an alien planet of lesbian goddesses, even though she's Latino.
Yeah, it's the same concept of having a product or writer or perspective that just doesn't sell. And you're like, oh, we should not be doing that anymore. And they end up having an entire season or 4-arc episode or whatever the case may be. The thing is with Batman is there's so many, or big popular names like Batman, is there's so many iterations that they just assume, oh, it's going to sell because Detective Comics, it always sells. Not knowing that, yeah, you need to have a good writer that people want to buy, as opposed to the chick down the street.
The one writer that I always hate is the insert writer. Like, I always hate that because it's just more... Yeah, it's just more narcissism saying, like, look at me, I'm great at everything, which is why I always I try to stay away from that. I think I've talked to you about it, Smud, with this icon I had. It's like... self-inserts. Yeah, I don't want this character to be a self-insert. Like, I just want it to be its own thing. Maybe, like, you know, man, I wish I could be like her, you know. I'm just writing it the way that I kind of wish I could be, but I could. I did hear some things that having a self-insert isn't, like, inherently bad. However, when you mention with, like, those writers, they're just narcissist and just show-it-alls, where it's like, if you actually try to use a self-insert properly, you could, like, more or less not only, like, critique yourself about what you should change for yourself, but grow as a person. I don't know if I could list examples, but that's what I've been told. That's a very interesting thing to think about. I never thought of it that way.
Yeah, like, think of it like how you view yourself a little bit. Look into the mirror once in a while.
It is difficult to argue writer on board moments as an effective storytelling technique. And some people enjoy them. Like, I know people who love reading Atlas Shrugged. And near the end of the book, there's pretty much 2 chapters or just, like, I don't know, 30 pages dedicated to John Galt. Pretty much just saying whatever the writer wanted him to, just in his gigantic speech. And it was like, oh my God, this is a sermon. And as much as you may like capitalism and hate socialism, this is not how you do it, Ayn Rand. This is crazy. And people still loved it. And you have to understand that these things don't sound or feel or like, you imagine just all of a sudden there's a news conference of the president. He stops all the news. He comes on. Can you imagine Joe Biden doing that and just like rambling on for 3 hours about green energy or something? You're like, oh my God, this is insane. Like, it just changes your whole perspective of the story and what the hell is up with this guy. And, well, if you haven't figured out what Joe Biden is nowadays. So these things have to be done in an appropriate way. And you could argue Neil Gaiman did a lot of that with Morpheus and some other characters that he was creating, because he needs
not
to.
not comics, but Chris Avellone, you could say, did that with Kreia and Ulysses.
Oh well, that's different because we're talking about a video game where part of the story is like you do your mission combat experience, you come back to the ship, and then stuff happens, and you repeat that process the same way BioWare games did with Dragon Age and Mass Effect. You go back to your ship, or you go back to your camp, and you talk to everyone, and they give you some lore, and they build up the world, and they get some relationships going, and like that whole game loop was part of that experience. And Chris was heavily inspired by the first game because he loved it so much that he had to work on the second. So, and he took with him his problems with the Star Wars brand or the lore or the mythos, and he turned it on his head to say, let me make this make sense. Or at least let me...
Yeah, he basically just had Kreia say all of his criticisms for the Jedi Order.
Yeah, he's not saying, oh my God, my life as Chris Avellone sucks. I got married and I divorced this woman, blah, 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 blah. It's like, I don't give a shit. No, he is...
I'm just saying, ultimately, I was just saying, you can use a character as a mouthpiece in a correct way.
Within the context of lore. Yes, for sure. That was... I mean, this is how writers write. They put themselves in the character. They say, I am this character. This is what this character would do. I've defined their personality and their background. Now I'm going to think along their terms, and this is how they would bounce around like a pinball in the story. So, yes, that's exactly what writers do. But I wouldn't call that writer on board moments or soapboxes or public couch trips where they start giving their own self therapy.
Yeah.
On this prostastyle. I was going to say prostastilizing, but on this congregation. Yeah.
That's why I just never do a self-insert, because I'm always afraid to be like, oh great, I'm just being a narcissist by saying, hey, this character has flaws the same way I do.
You do have to be careful because writers are. You're writing a story. You're by definition putting your ego in the number one spot and saying, I can do entertainment, I can do drama, I can do comedy, whatever. Boom, here I go. And you have to pull it back here now and again.
Yeah, I write it. I'm pretty sure I like a female alien, even though I'm like a guy who's like into like action stuff. But I don't go out there and say like I know women better than women. Even though
all my characters that I have is just female, not because men are bad. It's just I've told someone the same thing.
I just like women. That's all you have to say.
I like women, but I was inspired by certain female characters like Ripley, Mrs. Brisby, because they're just so interesting characters when you watch them.
Men can write women and vice versa. It's not this inherently impossible task. It's not the best thing to attempt, but if you do get the concept of why a woman is female or why they have these certain roles in life, like a mother or a sister, like, oh, I get it. I understand why my sister is the way she is. I can easily express that on paper, and I know exactly how she would respond to me if I did something that she didn't like.
I mean, you don't even need to mention that they're female. You could just have them like have a strive of goal or a virtue that they have something commendable with. Like you could just look at I guess with like XJ9 from Teenage Robot. She's a girl, but she wants to be treated like a normal person, like a human.
Yeah, wait, and I think she's a robot.
And I think
how is she a girl?
Okay.
Robot girl.
Well, the writers who write characters well aren't concerned with we need more women in this story, or this woman's not sexualized enough or too much. It's like no, they're a character. They have a purpose. They have a goal. I know their vices. I know their virtue. And I know how they would go once I let them off like a boat with the wind that would carry them through the story. And you just write that. You write exactly what that character, as you had in your mind, would react when those events happen. It's like knowing your best friend. Like if you talk to your best friend, you know exactly how they're going to respond to you because you've heard it before. That's how you should write your character, as if they're on the back of your hand. You don't have to think about it. It's just boom, they're right there. And let them bounce around with all the conflicts and all the obstacles. So
I just like drawing Tom girls.
Great.
I'm an action nut.
All right. Anyway, we got a minute and a half left with this guy.
This
For the
guy.
most part, he's okay. I'm not disagreeing with him because we've heard this before. But I don't think he had to make this video. Like, there's
I don't
nothing.
think he
Yeah.
really has the right views or perspective to go about it either, because not only because of his leanings, but more or less he's just kind of boiling, simplifying it a little bit much, and not really. Again, I think we didn't even acknowledge these stores are not doing as good as they used to, like
Well,
what we mentioned.
I would poke fun of him of what he has in the background, the sign.
I did that, but we're just
Yeah.
gonna leave that aside.
All right.
I'm just choosing to leave it alone and just hear his points. And so far, yeah.
Yeah, we're just leaving it. We could just let that be.
Yeah.
All right. Here's the thread knot. Thank you again, sir. The fact that they're not selling because the stories are terrible, they're antagonistic towards fans, and the art is awful is not a strength. Well, there's production values, which a lot of people pointed out for a lot of the DC stuff, as well as the Marvel in the past 10 years. So it's a combination of things. It's a combination of like using techniques for computerized images. So it's like,
Yeah, there's this stuff with the digital method going about like Marvel currently with some of their designs that I really want to try to make a video on, because the modern ones are just so they're so flawed from like what they used to be with like back then.
I
the whole
know
spot outfit
the
destruction.
the big issue this year or last year even was the introduction of was it not generated but massaged AI art. So you have like an original piece of artwork and you give it to like one of those AI generators and they like massage it for it
Is
to
it
be like,
like the thing? I think Shad did something like that a little bit. He was using an AI art to do his thing a little bit.
yeah, I was listening to Shiny. Shiny's a big opponent of AI anything. So when Shad's like, yeah, it's good. It's a good technique. And Shiny's the exact opposite. I'm like there has to be some middle ground. It's just a tool. You have to use it properly.
You can just use it as reference. I mean, that's the best I could see it as, because, well, it's not going to generate my style because I'm more cartoonish compared
Yeah.
to like DC, who's more realistic.
I'm very cartoonish, so if you get me to do realism, I can't.
Yeah,
Or
it's like asking the AI bot for any question. They'll give you a very specific answer. So you have to ask it to do artwork in a certain way, and they could produce hyper realistic and the gradation of light, so the shadows and the hues of the colors as light hits it, like they do that very well. But to do line art, I have no idea. I've never seen line art from AI.
I don't like the idea of like AI artwork. It just seems kind of takes the impressiveness out of it, because the whole point of being an artist is that, oh, you can do this? That's impressive. It's like a talent that I don't think a lot of people can represent.
Oh yeah, I think AI is great if you're a idea guy or if you're a director. Like imagine if I was thinking of the Star Wars creator, if he did not have, if George did not have a team of artists around him, he would have just asked AI, and then he would have taken that artwork from AI and said, "Hey, artist, do that, and do like 3 versions of that, and we'll see what you can come up with." Because that's pretty much what he did with like Attack of the Clones or the prequels.
Ooh.
Once he had all his money, he just said, "Okay, let's get your idea of what Darth Maul would look like." And he just, "Okay, I like that one. Do more of those." Then to do a 3rd round, and he just like threw all his money at artists just to do concept artwork. And
Yeah.
visually amazing, but holy, what an expensive process.
Yeah, I guess
You could definitely trim that down. And I've heard like, what else have I heard? You could definitely use it for backgrounds, just so you could get like the right one, and heck, even mix and match it.
I've seen it in manga, yeah.
Yeah.
It does speed things up, and a lot of those mangas that are full color, I mean, holy crap, if you could speed those up, go for it, because you don't need an artist to make a 3D render of a thing that's a mile away of like the mountains and a city and the tower, and it's like, oh my god. Just give me the basics, let an AI do that, focus on the face for the artist and the body movements, and that's great. Manga's fine. So, but people take their full page, full color South Korean artwork or comics very seriously. So
Well,
They'll
it's an
pick up
art
on that.
form.
Anyway, we got a minute and a half. Let's keep going.
We'll finish this.
It's a feature. Because we can debate manga versus comics as much as we want. But at the end of the day, they're both just fucking comics. They're both based on sequential images to tell a story. They're both released in single chapters.
It's just a story, guys. It's just Shakespeare. It's just a play. It's just okay.
They're just comic guys. Stop overreacting.
If it's just a comment, then what's the point of this video?
If they're just comics, what's the point of your channel that you talk about comics on?
Well, I mean, if he was trying to demean comics, he would have said something along the lines of, "Oh, don't complain about the story. It's fictional. It's fiction writing."
They're just my hobby. They're just the entire billion-dollar industry of video games. They're just movies. It's like we can do this with everything. Like this is what people enjoy. It's not just a hobby.
Yeah, like that to me that's kind of insulting. Like I know what I do is for a small minority, but it's more than just a hobby. I love doing it and I want to keep on doing it.
I generally just do it because I like people to get invested with my work. And
Yeah,
morally
same.
both because I made it out my goal since my life.
Yeah.
Even on the side of just being the consumer, a lot of this media means a lot to people. And
Yeah, like I get really excited whenever I make a new character and I have to show it to people. Like, look at this cool character I made. Isn't it cool? Like, I get nerdy about it. Like, I'm just always happy about.
I call myself a little autistic, sharing ideas with folks.
I mean, why do you think I always try to show you? Well, some of my ideas, if you're not cringing away from it.
Yeah, I know.
If do my best.
If you're like Martin Scorsese saying it's just a movie, it's like, okay, if he says that in his brain, the guy who's made all these amazing classics, he's already figured out what a movie is and he has one way of doing it. And that's like, okay, I get it. This guy, I love comics, but they're just fucking comics. It's like, okay, dude, do you like comics or do you just sort of hate them? Like, what's going on?
Yeah, I mean, does he really have a favorite? I mean, I think he does have some favorites. I mean, I haven't seen.
Yeah, I know, but it's like saying I got married. It's just a fucking woman, you know. It's just a female. it's like imagine saying that to your wife. I don't think that's a very.
That will go well.
No, you don't do that.
really, you can't really display this as anything other than a dismissive statement. It's not really something you can get around.
You don't say that about the thing you love. It really does not work with the person as a form of authenticity, of someone who's actually appreciative of the art form, of the writing, of the art, whatever. This is not how you respond.
Right. That's like, I mean, I think I've responded that in the same way when I said I'm not very into The Witcher, like deep fantasy. I don't know if I said something in the lines like, it's just fantasy for me, I guess. I don't know.
It's just not your preferred genre.
Yeah, it's something you're not. You would say that like, it's no big deal. I'm not too excited about it. I like it, but you know, whatever.
Yeah.
If that's his attitude, he's got the wrong hobby here. Anyway,
approach.
Let's keep going. The Thread Knot, one more time, sir. Thank you again. I can't give an example of any recent manga stories that are amazing, but the artwork of One Punch Man is pretty good. That's the professionally done one. I agree.
Yeah, that's the manga.
Yeah, it's really cool. Unlike modern Western comics, it depends on the comic. Every art form is different. I have to look at specific Marvel DC stuff to know what you're talking about. But yeah, the new one, the action scenes, the background details, the 2-page spreads, they're really good. But even like Akira, like the original color full-page spreads, 2-page spreads were really good too. So manga artists really put a lot of effort into their stuff because they're black and white. You can get away with it. And then when you want to get bigger and more popular, you have more money to use, you say, I want a big full-page action scene shot of my character jumping and whatever. It's like, yeah, we can afford it. Let's do it. So it comes with sales, essentially, that the publisher can allow you to do those kinds of things.
Yeah.
In trades. They both have serious systemic issues when it comes to deadlines.
Systemic issues of deadlines. And now you bring up an article from some probably Western website. The manga industry needs to stop hurting its talent.
This was released on March I can't read
That
that,
looks
but
like an article from, was it?
it's 2021, so it's like 2 years ago. So
Yeah, I'm trying to say if that's Screen Rant, but
No, if it's Berserk, no, that's don't think that's the industry doing that to Miura. I think Miura was just putting the stress on himself to make this stuff, you know?
I mean, Mura was definitely big enough that he could have done anything he wanted and been fine.
I hope that's just an eye-catching thumbnail for the sake of having, a funny little joke. But I hope they're not talking about Miura. That's silly.
they'll be goofy.
And crunch into their workers, as well as hypersexualization of female characters.
here we go.
All right, so
Here we
let's
go.
look at all these women on the screen. I know most of them. None of them are hypersexualized.
Mike, go back on
yeah.
the panel there.
Yeah.
Go back just a little bit.
The anime girl through the male otaku gaze.
I'm trying to.
I don't know what's going on with that.
I cannot get it right.
Yeah, it's a bit.
Oh,
Yeah, there it is.
Just press.
There
We
we
got it now. We got it now.
Okay, so I know. I think the girl with the
Ooh,
white
dark skin.
hair. That's from My Hero Academia. I don't know much about her.
She's
She's a fit bunny girl, dude. That's it.
a dark skin.
Yeah, I know she's a bunny girl, but would you say she's overly hypersexual?
No, she's basically wearing a gymnast unitard, but it's white. It doesn't have stockings.
I need to look at a.
Does it stop the artist though?
I need to. Yeah, you're right. This isn't. How is this hyperly sexual? Like, oh no, we can see her legs. Holy shit, she's got muscle on those legs.
Yeah.
God damn.
Just
The
because
only character. Then there's Aqua here. I assume the reason she's here is because she doesn't wear panties,
Yeah, that's
and
kind
that's
of
a
been
fucking joke.
Oh no, she doesn't wear underwear.
yeah, if a woman wears a bikini, that's not hypersexualized. You could say it's sexual by virtue of wearing something skimpy.
I live in Florida. I see girls wearing the same shit that Yoko from Gurren Lagann wears all the fucking time, dude.
Ooh, no, I have a better example. Have you ever heard of Darkstalkers?
Sure.
You know of Felicia?
Yep.
She's practically naked, and no one complained.
She wears a
Wait,
leotard. Yeah, it's.
No, it's not even a leotard. She's just naked.
Oh, it's her skin.
If you want,
That is her body.
Oh, she's naturally tight. Okay, whatever.
That's her hair. Yeah.
you know, well, you may not get this since you guys never read the comics, but there's a part in Sabrina Online, like she wears no pants, and everyone is always confused, like you don't wear pants, you're just running around naked. Well, in the comics, it's addressed she does wear pants. It just matches her fur texture, and everyone's like, "Oh, so she does wear pants?" I just thought she was naked, and it's like, no, she wears pants that is the same color as her fur.
There was a joke. I believe there
And,
was a joke in a cartoon where it's like, "Oh, you don't wear any pants." It's like, no, these are like invisible silk.
Yeah, that's how it was with Sabrina, and everyone was, and Sabrina in the comments made a joke saying, "You guys thought I was pantsless, you perverts."
Well, this is the last 2 minutes of every video where the guy shows his stripes, and this is completely unnecessary.
This is a very wonky zebra.
This is nothing to do with the topic of manga versus comics, and to say it's a problem of manga is to say it's a problem of entertainment as a whole. Nothing to do with specifically how the Japanese.
First off, they've never actually proved that sexualization is at all a bad thing.
I mean,
It's
to be
not.
honest, where it's like it can be overdone, and also I think we mentioned with like some stuff could border with fetish.
I mean,
but with
isn't
like the whole thing with it's got to like have some form of purpose to standardize.
Well, even the smut you read or have read, I don't know if you guys have ever checked out smut these days.
Oh, I read it so much. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
I mean it's not just, oh, look at these hips, look at these curves. there's got to be more to the character than just how they look. And
Yeah,
the good stuff
mean,
has the
she al-
backstory. It has the characterization of why they are doing what they're doing and why they get emotional, why the drama exists. It can't just be porn, or else
Yeah,
it is
and-
porn. It has to
and-
be something to it.
and you may not believe me or not, but whenever I do read these hentai or furry porn, I do try to find, like, okay, is there anything interesting with the characters other than just get your dick wet? And a lot of times, no, but a lot of times I have, but I have come across some lewd comics that made me feel like genuine care for the characters, because one of them is going through like an abuse relationship and he wants to get out of it. And I was like, oh, this is actually pretty good.
Yeah, there's
But, yeah.
there's motivations. I remember watching House back in the day, and there was that doctor who saved his life with his leg, and then she became a lawyer, and then her husband was sick, and he had to treat him, and then she was having problems with him, so she hooked up with House. Like, there's all these dramatic lines of narrative to connect why these people are doing what they're doing. Not to say that House is a smutty show, but it shows how complex human relationships can be. And if you don't give me something to motivate these characters to doing what they're doing, then it's just titillation. And you're like, what's the point of this? I don't care. Give me something to work with. So you can have sex, you can have violence, you can have the serial killer or the ladies' man or whatever the personality might be, so long as the audience can wrap their brains around it. And that's done through backstory and storytelling and all the normal stuff you would use to explain a scene. So when you depict characters who are women, whether it's a visual medium or just in writing, give me a reason. Even like Grisham and all these other like Tom Clancy books, when they have a hot lady, it's not just she's a hot lady. It's like, why? How? What's her personality? Like, why did she become a computer expert? And what's her personal, like, how'd that develop? It's not just, oh, she's hot and she's a geek.
Also, to interject, Smud, generally the women do like to look at like other pretty women too. Like, today's women are just ugly and well not in good shape, let's just say. Compared to like the male figures who are just, in shape, where it's like everyone's kind of slim now. Where back then it's like both women and men gorgeous, where it's like men are just ripped and jacked and shirtless.
Well, isn't it kind of weird? Because they always talk about women empowerment. Seeing sexy, gorgeous lady doing things that you can do, it just takes a lot of work to do it. They don't do it. Now, you know what I mean. I just find that weird that they're always talking about like empowerment, and they flip their shit when they see stuff like this.
Yeah, I think if Japan is actually hurting its talent, it's doing a very good job of pumping out really good stuff despite that. And if they're doing sexy women or sexy men, I'm like, I don't care. It's good for them. Anyway.
Yeah.
Entitled fans who harass and attack creators for not meeting their excruciating demands. Literally, the only thing that's actually different about the two is the direction that you read the panels. Sure, manga might be doing better.
Oh, so manga and anime, or manga and manga and Western comics are exactly the same, except the direction you read the panels, buddy. Okay.
So
the only thing. Are you sure about that?
Hey,
it's through this for hours.
Why did he say that? Of all this crap he went through, they're all the same.
Hey
Except
guys,
for the panels.
Did you know that video games and movies are the same? You're just watching characters do a thing on the screen, so it's
no, you gotta be like same. Patrick Willems. You're watching movies wrong.
Oh, fuck off with that.
You can imagine this video. It's like they're exactly the same, except the direction you read. And you're like, what? That's a 2-second video. Like, what are you talking about?
You're just watching porn wrong.
Oh, that's gotta
I think comics can and should look into trying to replicate some of that success when it comes to printing and distribution and accessibility. These companies need to be better about reprinting trades, especially the popular ones. They need to be better about distributing books to places that may not have local comic book stores. They need to start making it more clear which books are good for newer readers or where to start.
Oh, this is getting dumb. make it more clear which books are good for newer readers? Why would you? How would you market? How would you write a book?
Good stories, and people will read them.
Yeah, it's
like how we went.
I'm going to write a book for teenagers, but I also want to appeal to the adult crowd and the 7 or 8 year olds and the 65-year-olds. Like, what? No.
I like how
I think this guy is forgetting the first rule: know your audience.
yeah.
And especially with I work with an E10 demographic, but that's not to say I can't have adults read it.
I mean, I know my audience pretty well, but I welcome anyone to look at my stuff. If they just want to see a decent art style, you don't have to be into the stuff that I do. Just more exposure is good for me.
I'm just surprised he is destroying himself in the last 2 minutes when.
I like how we went from agreeing to him to what the hell?
Well, I don't know if I was really agreeing with him.
Well, there's some parts we agree with.
The way he put it was
the
funny.
points he made that we agreed with are just so general and obvious that they're not really worth stating.
It's like, they're one-sided in the West and they're a little more dynamic in the East. You're like, yeah, okay, whatever. And all of a sudden, there's over-sexualized women in the East. You're like, what? What are you talking about?
They're the same, Smud. No, they're the same. The only difference is that they place their panels different.
But anyway, they're just fucking comics, guys.
Purely on a fundamental level, they're the same storytelling medium. They're not at odds with each other. They don't compete if they're not, but purely on a fundamental level, they're the same storytelling medium. They're not at odds with each other. They don't compete. The same way that music from Latin American countries is still music.
Look, you can break anything down to a fundamental level and say it's the same as anything else. Like, all stories are just storytelling, so they're all the same, right?
Me saying that every horror story is the same. No, they can be different.
Different categories, yeah.
Yeah, there's different stories of horror movies. They're not all the same. God, this is like the same argument with my parents. Horror movies is just about blood and guts. No. There's a different storytelling of horror.
Mm-hmm. It's a different flavor of superhero, where it's not all of them come across as an instant good guy. I mean, look at Hulk.
Yeah. The fact that he says they don't compete is weird. That's yes, you're buying a comic. Coke and Pepsi, you're saying they don't compete?
I mean, that is actually something. If they're both the same, then they absolutely compete.
If they're both the same. If they're dissimilar, that means they have to be different. Therefore, warfare.
Really competing right now, because right now mangas is doing a lot better than what Western comics are doing.
Yeah,
today.
and we compare that to Chinese comics and South Korean comics and was it Taiwanese comics? There's all these flavors of manga. So
I didn't know the two
they're
comics.
they're all competing for your time and eyeballs and money. So whatever you spend your evenings reading, that is the thing. There's there's millions of books out there. They're all competing.
I mean, Japan's not like the American media where everything's owned by 3 companies either.
This is he's just slurring his ideas together. And we're like, okay, so are they the same or are they not the same? Are they apples and oranges or are they all apples? Which one is happening?
Well, Smud, if you read it backwards, it's obviously the same.
Yeah, this is the Japanese apple I eat left to right, and the American apple I eat up to down, or I don't know.
The apple is placed in different segments, all right? They come in each different flavor.
Different writers make different apples.
Each bite is you either get a Granny Smith in one bite or a Honey Crisp in another.
Yeah, the farmer is still making the delicious apples, but in Japan it's all Granny Smith or something. I don't know what the fuck.
All right, let's keep moving.
Music and Korea are still movies, and they're not a different category altogether. Comics
Really?
are comics. Even comics from Japan
Really?
are still comics.
O-
And that's
okay.
why I can't stand this discourse and this rivalry.
What is
You can
happening?
compare apples to oranges
I
all
don't-
day. But really, when you break it down, they're still both fruits. But
I'm done with this. This is so dumb. What is he talking about?
Oh my god,
Look, guys, they're just the same. all
You
right?
know, you You can compare steak to broccoli all night. They're both just food, though.
Hey, Smud, I learned if you kill someone in a different angle, it's still just murder.
I did it with acid instead of a knife.
Yeah, guys. Akira is a trade paperback just like Sandman. They're totally the same thing.
Totally. It's not like there's an internal nothing. It's just like one is just the placement of the panels. That's about it on the inside.
My God.
Why is he doing this?
I don't know. He was fine a minute ago. My guy, why did you do this?
Okay. He's trying to do this where it's like, oh, like basically these two are the same kind of medium, but he's not going why one's doing better than the other.
Yeah, but by virtue of saying that, they are in competition if they're the same. So if I say these are all apples, then they're in competition. Therefore, manga's kicking their ass. So why does the Western apples suck?
And you know what? I'll say this once and I'll say it again. I'm supposed to be the autistic one here. I should be talking like this, and I'm not. What does that say about him?
I mean, I'm pretty sure we criticized one thing in his background, but I mean, we're not gonna we don't care.
I think logic is lost his reasoning.
It is.
Okay.
Holy shit! I'm using logic, and I'm fucking retarded.
Are we done, or
we got okay? It's 20 seconds. I don't really care.
Let me know down below of the whole manga comics debate, and if you like this video, be sure to.
Okay, that's all I was gonna say. We're done anyway.
Yeah, there.
Yeah, that's too.
Memes.
Outro time.
Oh God.
Let's go to memes, everybody.
Way to blow up your argument.
Yay, memes.
Yay.
What do we got today?
Yay.
We got
what?
Oh, Pokemon. Thank you.
Pokemon. What the hell?
I'm
Cars.
Karuto Kruzumaki, and I want to be the next Hokage.
Hokage.
Fuck off! No.
I posted this yesterday. Why is this blowing my? Okay.
Yep.
When you keep signing up for free trials using different emails.
Okay.
Interesting. When your professor keeps assigning 10-page essays over the break. PDF with virus. Transfer precise people. I never had something in as a PDF. I don't think I've ever done that.
I mean, you could, but I don't. It depends on the group.
Hokage and Doctor.
Dr. Hokage.
If you read it right to left, answer.
And then
One Punch Man. And he is punching who exactly?
Boba Fett. The punching bag that can reflect your attacks.
Oh, that explains it. Huh.
Damage reflection. One hell of power.
Okay, My Hero Academia, Death Note, Attack on Titan, Dragon Ball Z, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. What happened to him?
Richard.
Okay, so the JoJo part is where I think I forgot his name, but he lost weight. Yeah, well, he lost weight and he got very buffy and he started to show off doing sexy stuff and everyone around him was getting disturbed. It was so funny.
Yeah. And then commercials, I hate them.
This dude, whoa. What is that?
What is that?
That is Marvel plus...
Thanos had Mario mustache.
Super Saiyan
Naruto
God.
had Saiyan hair.
Thanos fucking Infinity Gauntlet with what the hell is that in his hand? Lightsaber.
It's a lightsaber and he has an omnitrix in one hand.
Okay.
What the hell is with his mouth?
I don't know.
Grandma in cartoons versus Grandma in anime. Yeah.
That is true.
And
plus, for some weird reason, there's sexy grandma with anime. I can't believe I'm saying that.
They don't. No.
I'm not wrong. Go watch Interspecies Reviewer. That grandma, I don't know why. Mwah.
All right, so we got what is Is that Hey Arnold?
Edited Netty being edited into anime.
No, that's Eddie. No.
That's a bunch of things thrown together. Okay.
Okay.
Commercials. I hate them. Okay. Marvel created Sentry with the intention to mock DC's whack power scaling.
Yep. Basically, what this guy's whole ordeal is about is that his entire slogan is that he has the power of 1,000,000 exploding suns. He's a drug addict that drank a super soldier serum that's 1,000 times the potency, got the power of 1,000,000 exploding suns, and him and the Void managed to transcend all life, death, and creation and defeated them all command with his own power.
What?
Over one serum.
I remember reading about Sentry. I didn't know how he came about, though. So
It was around like 2000s. It was kind of supposed to be an ambiguous thing, but then Marvel took him seriously and made him like nerfed him a lot.
Oh no.
Oh, Sagi, there's your collection right there, buddy.
Yeah, there's some mangas I recommend people read,
Yeah.
as well as like Yokaiden, which I should read.
Cool.
Yeah, this is the meme I'm talking about.
Yeah, JoJo is not for everyone, but anyone could watch JoJo.
I mean, I like JoJo. It's
I watched
very absurd, but there's Baki.
I've seen the first episode of JoJo. I don't really get why people are into it.
The first episode is very rough, but it does get a little better afterwards.
Well,
Yeah.
they got
Part
rid
one
of,
as a whole is pretty rough.
yeah, they got rid of the superpower called Ripple, and then they stuck with the
Come on.
state.
Well, they got rid of it in like the third season, but the third part. But Joseph still uses it a little bit. A little.
This is number
Never cool.
3 or 5.
Of what?
I can't remember what version this is. It's not 4. It's 3 or 5.
It's-
Season 4.
That's 6.
It's 4, I think, actually.
Really? What's the purple hair then?
It was the GT
It's
one.
red. It's magenta red.
Oh. Anime Watcher exists. Manga reader. Do you want to know who dies in the end? Yeah, they should have the next guy, not the webcomic, the light novel. Do you want to know what happens at the end of the story?
Angry moms in anime, angry moms in real life. I mean, that
Make
is
sure it
true.
wasn't a Mexican anime mom. Oh God, the
Oh,
world. we're in.
Jesus. Okay, let's be honest. Mexican moms can be aggressive. I've seen
Especially with sandals.
them.
Most debated topics in the otaku community: anime versus manga, sub versus dub, old versus new. Sword Online good.
Oh god.
Some of us don't actually care about that one. The Marvel methods single-handedly gave life a plethora of vastly different and unique characters, the like of which the modern woke left will never replicate in their wildest dreams.
Yep. Yes.
Enough
That's true.
said.
Correct.
Ooh,
I'm not sure
titties.
what I'm looking at here, and
Don't worry, just observe. It's tits.
I didn't know they could do that. I have to observe a bit longer. Anyway.
Get very big.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, okay. We got the goofiness of Batman on TV.
Oh, I
We
remember
just can't
that
find
scene.
places to throw a bomb.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of funny.
Manga, anime, and
Netflix. I love that.
Oh, I mentioned Jenny. Okay.
all right.
Oh, that,
Here she is.
Yeah.
Artist, their art. Artist,
I'm the one on the left.
their art.
I can't
You
tell
know,
her.
I
Yeah,
wish.
Miyazaki versus what's his name? I can't remember. The horror guy.
Yeah,
Junji Ito. That's it.
Miyazaki could probably do the stuff on the right, but he doesn't really express it very well.
Okay. This
I
one
I
is
just feel that's relatable because I'm the left one.
okay. This one is entirely true. When two deaf kids get into an argument, I've seen like my whole family. I have some deaf brother-in-law and a deaf brother, so I know how that feels.
I had
The
two
problem-
kids on my football team when I was in school that were deaf, and yeah, it is like this.
And the problem is, I want to know what they're talking about.
You can't.
I wish more authors would do this at the end.
They can't talk. And then, what is it? Homer
where the artist just or the writer or author just fills in the blank with sketch art or
like okay, one blank with sketch art as well as like summarizing it, and then the afterward is just their own like their fake like congratulations for like getting through the story.
Yeah, that happens all the time.
Yeah, I kind of wish authors would do this. It feels very sincere. I feel earned.
Okay. Some say Keaton is the best Batman. Some say Christian Bale is, but deep down we all know Lego Batman has openly admitted to committing tax evasion and has faced no consequences.
Yes, that is correct.
He did say that. I can't read that.
It's the manga Fox was talking. I mean, comic. Bleh.
Yeah, it's basically the joke I said. Like Sabrina is the skunk, and her pants is literally her fur color. And the joke is like, what? You thought I was wearing nothing down the waist down? That's the joke.
I got you.
Invented microtransaction.
There we go. Now I can read it.
Okay. Why are Valve seen as the good guys in the industry again?
Yeah, well.
I don't know why it's just here, but I guess that's true.
Valve is a special place.
Yeah.
Gary's mod animator is still Flexo.
Anyway, that was
interesting.
That was an argument we've all heard before. Did not need to be made into a video. And then everything was pretty much okay until the last 2 minutes. And then he just killed himself.
I knew it was going to escalate somewhere like, oh, he's doing fine. I hate him!
It didn't have to go that way. He could have just said, good night, folks. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. Go buy some
Have a good night.
Whatever thing he was selling. I didn't even pay attention to that. Oh, jeez. Well, that was technically an anime video. So thank you guys for having an anime day. Last week we didn't. So thank you also to the panelists who came in because no one else wanted to touch this thing. And even Whisp was like, no.
Oh, did he like text you saying like, nope?
He was on the fence. And you could vote for yes, no, or maybe. And he was in the maybe column. So I'm like, all right, well, I won't bug him about it. But we got some auxiliaries. So guys, thanks a lot for tuning in and watching this crazy video with us. And commenting, of course. We always appreciate your comments. And I hope everyone's happy with their media. I know I got to go criticize Castlevania because that's the big thing these days.
They made vampires black. What do they mean by this?
No, they're not just black. They're blaxploitation with high heels and puffy hair and all kinds of... They made
vampires black and the main character is a guy with a whip. What do they mean by this?
I got to work on some art projects that I need to get done.
God looks to read, got an essay to do.
All right. Well, thanks, guys, for watching. We'll talk to you real soon. Have yourself a good Monday. And take it easy. Good night.
Bye. Have a